No, just be honest about it. You are trying to get rid of me. I can see through your plans. I know what you're doing. I'm sweating my balls off here. Carly, are you even listening to me? Are you even listening to me? You've decided that I have to wear a jacket. Did you even think that summer was coming? I'm dying in a t-shirt here. Do I have to show you that I'm not wearing anything on the bottom half to convince you that this is a terrible, terrible idea? Carly?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me? All I heard was a whole bunch of screeching. Sorry, were you using words? Was that English?
I'm sorry. I have been watching a lot of Abby Chatfield recently. That might have rubbed off. But all I'm saying is you didn't think about a summer wardrobe for me. You only gave me a winter wardrobe, and I am dying here, and it's the middle of spring.
No. We've got your summer wardrobe. It's just not safe for work, so we're going to have little blurries.
My birthday suit, yeah. Look, not even my wife likes that, so I don't think I'm going to be wearing that out in public anytime soon. I actually do love winter way more than summer because you can dress up against the cold, but if you dress down against the warm, there comes a point where they put you in prison, and that's less fun. Yeah. Yes. So I'm definitely a winter person because that way I can wear a t-shirt and not completely sweat my ass off.
Are you here to give us fashion tips, or is this a political podcast? Like, I'm a bit confused.
Well, I am just okay, fine. I will.
I've thrown you off, haven't I? Well, to be honest, I almost called. Am I allowed to speak at some point?
I was about to share my feelings with you, Carly, but clearly you don't care. So no, just you talk over me. Go. That's fine.
Dude, I'm an Aquarian. I don't give a shit about feelings.
Why are we even talking about feelings? I don't even have them. Keep going.
What star sign are you?
I have no idea. As if I'm going to know the answer to that question. Carly, have you met me?
When were you born? When's your birthday?
Like 40-something years ago. I'm April, early April.
So you're either an Aries or a Taurus.
Don't know, don't care.
I reckon you're a Taurus. I don't know. Either way.
Sen 09 might have a point. There might be one coming out later tonight. I don't know. We'll see how I go.
Awesome cement.
Look, possibly. All I'm saying is you can see it. I'm not lying here. Like I can't wear a jacket. I cannot wear a jacket as a regular part of my wardrobe.
You look like Barnaby Joyce, so
beetroot, great. So I've got to choose beetroot or just go orange after Orange Man Bad. One or the other. Right.
Anyway, speaking of clothes, I almost called this episode The Emperor's New Clothes because that's what I feel like we're living through right now. And I mean, so much to unpack, but just looking at social media, X, and the news cycle for the last 24 hours, like there is nothing Jacinta Allen can do now. She is literally out of her depth, and she went out today to double down.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I have not seen it like this in 16 years of political commentary. I've never seen a setup like what's just happened to Jacinta in the last couple of weeks. It is perfection.
It is. This is literally, like, for those who don't know what the Emperor's New Clothes are, no amount of Jacinta going out there and trying to convince her base that she's right and like things are going well. Because every time she comes out and says the Melbourne CBD is safe, something even more egregious happens. So whether it's knife crime, like random stabbings, carjackings, or like, kids hooning around the CBD, like she can't catch a break. And it's beautiful, but you're starting to see like the sentiment I got from X today is everyone's sort of on a bit of a high because the police commissioner or a police sergeant's come out saying, like it was left, right? And people are like, this is a win. I'm like, guys, stop. The game is just getting started. Like this is it. We're about to tee off. Would you agree?
I do. And can I make an observation? Well, two observations. Firstly, the degree to which the left-wing nut jobs are going ballistic over the fact that the violence was correctly pinned on them. And look, I'm not a supporter of these current round of protests. I've got a very different view on immigration to what these guys do. That history is well known. So I'm not coming at this comment from a partisan point of view. But well done to everyone involved in the March for Australia this last weekend for keeping it clean, for keeping it
Yeah.
absolutely clean cut, to the point that the police have had to come out and acknowledge it, and the media have belatedly been forced to acknowledge it. Sky News were all over it right from the get-go. So was social media. Rukshan and others got it out there straight away, the truth of what had happened. But even so, and I think you might have some of this for tonight's show, other mainstream media outlets tried to kind of fudge it with how they wrote their headlines and tried to kind of imply that it was, these anti-immigration protests turned violent, trying to imply that it was the March for Australia people that turned it violent, which wasn't true. They've been called out, which is fantastic. So well played to everyone that is involved in these protests. If this is your thing and you believe in this, that stopping immigration is going to solve your problems, I disagree with you, but you're going about it the right way, and it's paying dividends. This is why I always say, if you resort to violence, you instantly lose. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, and further to that, I saw Beck Freedom got interviewed by Channel 9, I think it was, and she delivered a really good line. Like, she's obviously rehearsed and she was ready for it. Because I know she got stitched up by Ben Fordham. Anyway.
Fordham. Yeah.
Fordham. But the line that went to the news, the part that they showed was saying, like, like any group, there's always going to be mixed messages, but the sole reason we're here today is because of mass migration. I was like, great, Beck, you are on brand, and everyone there behaved really well. It was perfect. It couldn't be better. But I mean, there's so much to talk about here, but I couldn't help but notice, because I watched Channel 9's coverage, Channel 7's, and then I made the mistake of watching ABC and I got really mad. But both Channel 9 was ABC was ABC. You can imagine what they were saying. But Channel 9 had to preface it with saying that last time this march went ahead, there was neo-Nazis at the beginning of the march and blah, blah, blah. So straight away framing it in people's mind, oh, it's those people again. And by the time they said, they were well-behaved and they showed that clip from Beck, it was already kind of like painted that, this is a neo-Nazi protest.
Yeah.
But I will say this. They're getting called out for it. They're being called out very clearly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to re-prosecute this. In the case of the March for Australia, I'm sorry, this is everybody else joining in a FASH rally, an NSN rally. That is actually the truth. I'm sorry about that. I wish that wasn't so, but it is the truth. But the vast majority of people are there for the right reasons. And if the NSN are kept in check, so last time I warned before the first one, this is an ambush. This is a setup. The whole point is to give them the microphone, and that's exactly what played out. However, I think having her head kind of kicked in social media by me, and having the experience that she had with Ben Fordham and others, Beck is obviously a fast learner, and she's getting her shit in order. I still wouldn't show up. I'm still not going to show up and support them. I don't think mass migration's the issue. Our perverse incentives are the issue. And if we fix them, then the whole problem, all of these problems fix themselves. And my fear, as I've said before, but for anyone new, my fear is that people are going to get all excited about stopping mass migration, potentially even succeed, and then they go home and none of the real problems have been solved. Let me make this point for anyone listening and sitting on the fence on this one. If the whole premise is we only want migration from white European countries, then, because they share our culture, they share our values, we're going to be able to get along better. Okay, fine. Let me give you some names and see whether you share these people's values and whether you think they're good for the country or bad, because they're all good white European stock. Anthony Albanese, Kevin Rudd, Malcolm Turnbull, right? Julia Gillard. Like, these are all good Aussie white European names, right? Isn't this this is the people that we want, right? This is, according to these guys, if we just fill the country with these people, then all our problems will be solved. Except that we know for a fact that these people are actually the ones causing most of our problems. So the whole premise that underpins this entire anti-mass migration thing is flawed. I'm sorry, you can get rid of every single, you can stop migration, you can get rid of a bunch of migrants that are already in this country. You're still going to be stuck with the people that are actually destroying this country. And my fear is that they're going to win and go home going, oh yeah, job well done, migration is stopped, and wake up 20 years later and go, hang on, how did Australia become a big white ghetto? Because that's what we're becoming right now. And arguing over migration is simply arguing over what skin color the prisoners inside the ghetto are going to have. And that's a less interesting argument to me than whether or not we're going to turn into a ghetto. So sorry, I get really fired up over this. It just pisses me off to see all this energy being wasted. However, for the people that went, fair play. You're doing it exactly right. If that's what you believe is the issue and you want to fight that issue, you're doing it well, and well done.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you and I disagree on the mass migration thing. I agree with the sentiments of the protest. I do believe we need to stop mass migration the way it's happening because much like I mean, I always bring it back to my mate Niab from El Salvador, but we need sweeping reform. We need all of our attention on deck for the issues we're all facing. And I think whilst we're trying to have a whole bunch of people coming over from Gaza or from Africa or from the Middle East, wherever they're coming from, their race is irrelevant. We cannot deal with the problems here whilst our attention is being co-opted by everything else. I think I'm not against people migrating to Australia, just to be really clear. But right now, at the volume we're taking these people in, it has to stop. That is my opinion. So I agree with the sentiment about mass migration, but my line in the sand is saying that we don't want anyone here that doesn't look like us. I have a real issue with that, which is why I'm really
Yeah.
conscious of not associating myself with anyone that hangs on to the NSN or is even on their fringe because I don't agree with that. I am an expat. I grew up overseas. Most of my friends are expats. Very few of my friends are like true blue Aussies, as the NSN would like them to be. So I'm never going to stand here and say that, no, we shouldn't take people in. I've made my point very clear multiple times, and that is I think that the incentives need to be higher. We need to bring people into this country who have good trades, the things that they told us they would be, right? The doctors, the engineers, all the people with the skills to, lift up our skills shortages. But we're having the complete opposite. And we know that, right? So I agree with this protest, and I'm really happy with what happened. I'm really happy to see how it went down. Not Melbourne, we'll get to Melbourne in a second, but overall, like, great to see that people were, when I say on their best behavior, not taking the bait because that's what they
Yeah.
want, right? The second they can frame you, and I did notice this. I think it was Channel 9, same footage as I covered. There was one particular lady. I think she was in Melbourne, and forgive me if she was somewhere else, but she carried on a little bit and she got arrested. And of course that made the news, right? And
Sure.
I don't know what happened, and I'm not trying to weigh in on what happened. What I'm saying is they're waiting for those clips. And as much as she may have had a reason to arc up, I don't know, and I'm not claiming otherwise. But what the media is looking for is anything they can use against you or to frame it. And so even if they're antagonizing you and baiting you, you need to hold your ground. Not because you can't get angry, because you're walking into a trap, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, some people are really good at baiting others. Like they know how to try and draw you in. In fact, I would say that they've had so much experience baiting that they're actually master baiters. And you just need to be very, very careful not to get sucked in. You're reading comments and not listening clearly, because that was hilarious.
I'm sorry. I really struggle to read comments and listen to you. Sorry. You've got my full attention.
I can tell. Let's get to some comments quickly.
Right.
So insert username. Australia doesn't have a right-wing problem. It's got a communism problem. A lot of these undesirables were marching under Soviet flags. The bottom line is there are people that call themselves all kinds of things, and they think they're ever so different. But fundamentally what they believe is that they should have more power. They should get to decide on behalf of others. And I don't care whether that person calls themselves a fascist, national socialist, a communist, a Marxist, what label they want to give, a nationalist, whatever label they want to give themselves. If they're saying everyone should be forced to live their lives according to my idea of what's right for them, then they're part of the problem. So I'm less interested in which flag it is, and more interested in just a very simple question. Do they have faith in other people's ability to make their own choices or not? If the answer is yes, well, then perhaps we can be friends. If the answer is no, well, I'm sorry, you and I are not going to get along.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I did say this to you off camera, and I'm seeing it more and more and more. Like, we were talking about the woke right, like, a year ago, but now I'm seeing this, and like, not just on our threads or anything like that, just collectively, I'm going to call it the conservative movement, for lack of a better term, but those who are aligned with the conservative way of thinking are now becoming just as intolerant as we saw on the left. They have a certain criteria, and they want you to fit in that. And if you deviate from that, therefore you are the enemy. And so we're going to see the same fracturing on the right as we saw on the left. And what my concern is, just because the pendulum's swinging back, we don't want it to overswing where we now have that fracturing with the right and we go far right progressive on the other side. And then people who are center right are sitting there going, whoa, what happened? This is not what I signed up for. And I can give you examples of this. And sorry, go.
Sure. I was going to say,
go.
Now we've got a problem. I'll make one very quick point. This is what happens when you go from viewing yourself as being in opposition to viewing yourself as being in the ascendancy. When you're in opposition, you put aside your differences. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and you'll put aside every difference between you and your and someone who's the enemy of your enemy, right? But as soon as you think you're winning, and we saw this in World War II, by the time the Allies realized they were defeating Germany, America already started working against the communists because they knew that was the next war, even though Russia was still fighting the Germans. America were responsible for effectively executing through deception, a whole bunch of French partisans, people that had risked their necks for years fighting the Germans under the Vichy regime during World War II when they were occupied. These were courageous people that had risked their lives to fight against the Germans and to fight against fascism, but they did it under the communist banner. And so what the Allies did on more than one occasion was they would set up the partisans to go and do a strike against German, railway lines or something like that, and they would tip off the Germans. So the Germans would just go and slaughter the entire group of people. And in the minds of the Americans that were making these decisions, it's like, well, we're going to beat the Germans. We already know that. We now have to make sure that the communists don't take over in France or anywhere else. And so that's what happens when people start to think they're winning. Instead of being focused on, is this person the enemy of my enemy? Okay, good. Then we can work together. Now they start to really see their differences and start to make enemies all around them.
Yeah. And I'm seeing this, every now and then when I see the chat, there'll be a comment in there going, oh, well, Carls and Topher want Melbourne to look like London. I'm like, okay, so because we disagree with you on this thing over here, now we're the rabid progressive left. Like, that kind of thinking is so destructive. And I know you're probably doing it to antagonize me or whatever, but it's not just our chat, it's across the board. We want it this way. And if it's not on our terms, then it's not good enough. We've just battled that for 10 years with the left. And as we know, with the left, the horizon kept shifting. The whole slippery slope argument. You give them gay marriage, then all of a sudden it was the trans stuff. And now they're trying to legalize bloody pedestry, right? And I know it sounds like I'm talking in hyperbole, but it's the exact same sentiment. And that's what scares me. It's like, no. We are still advocating for a civilized society where we can have discourse with each other. We're not going to agree on every point. That doesn't mean you need to condemn me and tell me that, I'm an idiot and I don't get to have a say. We need to get to a point where there's a robust conversation, and it should always be robust. There should be points where you and I go, no, I disagree with you on that. That's healthy. When we start to end up in echo chambers, that's not good.
Yeah, and you and I are distinctly different when it comes to the immigration issue specifically. But there's been some comments that were made a little bit earlier in the thread. I just want to explain what I mean when I say fix the incentives. One of the reasons why we have to have quotas on immigration is because we've made it so attractive. People can simply show up here, and yes, it is a fact. The fact checkers love to say, oh, that's not true. There are certain, if for example, if you're Indian, you come to Australia, we have a reciprocal arrangement with India where you instantly qualify for things like the pension, for Medicare, and for other benefits that, yes, are denied other immigrants for longer. And so what happens is when someone says, oh, they just come here for the welfare, they just come here for the handouts, the fact checkers will say, oh, no, that's not true. They're not eligible for X amount of time. Well, they're talking in the sort of the worst case scenario, but there are people that can come here and be immediately eligible because we have reciprocal arrangements with those countries, which, by the way, make no sense because barely any Australians are emigrating to India, especially not at retirement age, and especially not for their healthcare system. Okay. So we've signed these really dumb bilateral agreements that create this perverse incentive for people. Those people from those countries can come here and write off our welfare system. We've got to get rid of that for a start. Secondly, we've got to get rid of any of this sort of nonsense around help to start up businesses, or basically any taxpayer funded anything has to go. I would argue that we actually need to get rid of taxpayer funded healthcare, welfare, education, the whole lot. We need to move this entire country across to a user pays system. Now, the reason why I say that is because you can either have a generous welfare system and a generous taxpayer funded system, or you can have open the ability for people to move and to move around between countries. You can't have both. Now, there's a lot of people who are very happily saying, well, that's fine. We'll just shut down movement. We'll shut down immigration. There is no difference between what we have now and essentially serfdom, essentially a feudal system. As soon as we introduced passports were introduced in the First World War, by the way. Before that, they really didn't exist. People simply showed up and said, well, this is my name and what have you. You can go through the records in New York when immigrants were arriving into America during that era where they had this huge wave of immigrants. It's just this book where people are giving their names, etc. Passports were invented as a temporary measure during World War I to protect against enemy agents coming into the country, right? That was the argument. It's for your safety. It's to stop terrorism, or in this case, to stop the enemy, to stop the war. And of course, there is nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. But because we have all of this welfare, now we have to have essentially a serf-based system where you belong to the country that you were born in. They kind of own you. And other countries are going to decide, are you allowed to come onto our turf or not? Now, I view that as one of the worst human rights violations. It is borderline to human trafficking, this kind of restricting of people's movements. But I know that I'm very much alone on that. There's a lot of people that view that really, really differently, and that's okay. But let me come back to this issue of the welfare and the incentives. If there was no perverse incentive, if it was a case of, yeah, you're welcome to come here, but you better fucking work a job. You better pay your way because there's nothing else here for you. And by the way, if you start getting involved in crime, stealing, even if it is to feed your family, or you start getting involved in violent crime or this other stuff, you'll be out on your ass in no time, like zero tolerance. You're out on your ass. You change the incentives. And at that point, who's going to come over here? Well, not the people we're getting at the moment. And that's the point, right? The problem actually isn't that we've got immigrants coming in. The problem is that we've got immigrants coming in who have no desire to work, to pay their own way, to integrate, to make and build a better future for themselves in Australia as Australians. That's a problem with the incentives. And so we have a choice. Either we clamp down and we put up iron bars around Australia and we try and control everyone that moves in and out, and we go deeper into this world where countries are effectively fiefdoms. We are serfs on a tax farm. That's the reality of Australia today. Or we fix the incentives and then we don't have to control people the way that we take for granted today.
Yeah. The one little caveat I'll add to that, though, is the rise of fundamentalist Islam. I do see that as an issue. And, people might disagree with me, and that's fine. You're welcome to. But I do think Islam is a threat. I do think what's going on in London is terrifying. I do think that having a socialist going for New York mayor is terrifying. And so what I'm seeing a lot with a lot of this migration, there is definitely what feels to me, and look, I could be wrong, but this is my opinion, right? So whatever. I do feel like there's a lot of people coming into Europe or Western countries with the intention of trying to take over. I do believe that. I do believe that to be true, because when we have a lot of these people coming here, and this is why I was saying, like, we need a better vetting system. I know you and I disagree with this, but I believe there's a lot of people coming here, one, because of perverse incentives. I agree with that. But two, there's a bigger objective here. These people want to come here to, I was going to say colonize. That's probably not the right word, but they want to start a Muslim caliphate, right? We've seen that already playing out in London. We're seeing that in a lot of parts of the world. That fucking terrifies me. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was only 25 years ago, not even, that September 11 happened, and we had, Osama bin Laden. Now all of a sudden you have Queers for Palestine. And, I look at, I'm sort of conflating two issues, right? But this is what put like the absolute fear of God in me. This was like the final thing. When that ceasefire was, signed with Trump and Israel and Hamas, and within like hours that Hamas was rounding up their own people and executing them publicly. Now I'm going to say something that's going to be deemed like outrageous, but get over it. Again, this is my opinion. Anyone that behaves like that are animals. We cannot get along with those people. We cannot get along with those people. And from what I understand, we've got, 2,000, 3,000 Gazas who are coming to Australia. And I say no, absolutely fuck no. I don't want to import people into this country who I don't know aren't one of those people, right? And like, call me alarmist, call me racist, whatever. Watching Hamas hours after this supposed peace deal, ceasefire, shooting their own citizens, that is a problem for me.
Yeah. Okay. But if we didn't pay their airfares and come and pluck them out of whatever refugee camp they'd got to, pay their airfares, bring them over here, give them a place to live, give them, welfare and what have you, and refugee status, they wouldn't be here. right? This isn't a case of, oh no, our border control has failed. This is a case of our government went out there looking for them, found them, and gave them everything and brought them over here. So
Which
to
is
me,
wrong.
it's like, well, no, it is absolutely wrong. And this is the perverse incentives issue. And this is, our government is actively doing that. And I'm saying all of that needs to stop. All of that needs to stop.
Yeah.
If someone wants to come here, they come here on their own dime. They come here responsible for themselves. And if they get themselves into trouble, they're out on their ass very, very quickly. And if we simply did that, like you're dead right about the Muslim mass migration of Muslims. We see that through Europe. We see that in London. That was mentioned here in this comment. We'll bring that up again. That was mentioned here. This is not an incorrect observation, but understand, if these people didn't think that they were going to get welfare and all kinds of cushy stuff and be able to live their life and get away with all kinds of heinous crimes, which we also know they did in London, then they wouldn't have come in the first place. And if they did come and they'd been held accountable to our laws, they would have been out on their ear in no time and word would have spread. So we've created this problem. We've created these rivers of people. If they knew that there was nothing here for them except for blood, sweat, tears, hard work, pay your own way, learn the language, fit in, and don't get into trouble. If that's what they knew was waiting for them here, a lot more of them would go, you know what, I'm pretty good where I am right now. The problem is we have created a belief worldwide, and frankly, an accurate belief worldwide, that we are an easy target. You come here, and once you're in, all your problems are sorted and you don't even have to work for it. Imagine if the multiple wives of Muslim men couldn't get welfare. Imagine if all that welfare money, if all that easy money was gone, how many of them would have come? How many of them would still be here if all of that easy money was gone? So when we fix the incentives, the people we don't want, the vast majority are going to, the trash will take itself out. The people that actually are going to come here and work can, and this is my issue, is that if we just create, Fortress Australia and build iron bars around our country, not only are we still stuck with the people who are the actual problem, i.e., the Albaneses and the Gillards and the Turnbulls and so forth, but we're keeping out a bunch of people that actually genuinely have made Australia what it is. And I don't say that as a platitude. People call me a cuck and all kinds of things. Oh, you won't stand up for white Australia. I stand up for human beings. I'm a part of the human race first and foremost. And anyone that is actually going to come and pay their own way and give it a proper go and give each other a fair go and act in a spirit of mateship is a damn sight more Australian than Anthony Albanese is, in my opinion, than Kevin Rudd and Daniel Andrews are, in my opinion. I don't care what color their skin is or what their name is. That's not a cuck behavior. That's a recognition that the human race is actually its own thing. Right? Now, are there humans that are a problem? Yes. So let's stop incentivizing them. Let's stop rewarding them. Let's hold them accountable when they screw up, and they usually do pretty quickly. And if we do those things, the trash takes itself out and the good people get to stay.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think the issue we see is twofold, right? Like, you can be conspiratorial and say this is all something coming down from WEF, it's a globalist agenda. But I think a lot of this too falls on the back of regular Joe Schmoes who have a bleeding heart. And Aussies are that to a T. Oh, it's terrible. We should take them in. We should help them. Like, even the ISIS bride story, like that riled me up like nothing else. These people are genuine monsters. They don't deserve to be on our shores. You abandoned us for a caliphate. And now that didn't work out, you want to come back to Australia? Absolutely not. But then we've got people like, sorry, go.
How about we start with this? We will take as many Gazan refugees as Egypt has taken. Let's just do that. Egypt is their next door neighbor.
Zero.
It's their next door neighbor. They know them well. They know something that we don't, right? We'll take as many as Egypt have taken.
Yeah, I agree. And look, the other thing is too, like, it's not a Muslim specific thing. It's a radical Islam thing, right? There's a lot of countries like, within the UAE, Saudi, who are warning the West about this a long time ago. There's a reason that Egypt and Jordan aren't taking on Palestinians, right? There is a reason that none of them are letting them have any land. Now, everyone keeps blaming the Jews, but there's a really good video. It went viral. It's gone viral multiple times. I think it was a sheikh in Saudi, or it might have been Qatar. I'm not too sure. But basically saying that we are warning you, this is not good. Do not let these people in. And he was talking about the radical Islamists. And sure enough, I mean, there's so many things going on, but what really pisses me off, and again, I'm conflating some issues here, but in London, we've seen the Pakistani rape gangs. Pakistanis predominantly are Muslim, right? So Muslim men are raping young British girls.
Yep.
And because they're Muslim, we weren't allowed to know about that. And it was all swept under the rug because, no one
Active
wanted to be
cover
seen
up.
as racist, right?
Yeah.
This is a two-tier society. This needs to stop. And I've talked about this before. Like, when we try and limit people's speech, I always joke about people saying, I can't swear. Well, it's no different to saying, like, oh, you shouldn't say Muslim, Carly, or you shouldn't say that. We need to get to a point when we're no longer policing people's speech and we're able to have an open discussion and go, no, it is Pakistani Muslim men doing this. It is these Sharia law believing fundamentalist Islamists who are coming here and giving peaceful and normal and happy Muslims a really bad name. And, I know people love to generalize and go, no, all Muslims are bad. I disagree. I know plenty of good Muslims. It's the fundamentalists that are the issue. It needs to be stamped out. But with the way the left behaves and the way Jacinta Allen or Albanese behave, you can't even have a conversation because before you even get off the start, they're calling you a racist.
Okay, so you used a term earlier that I actually think was correct, but you kind of walked away from it, and that was colonialism and a colonization. There is no Islam as an ideology is a colonial ideology. It wants to take over and colonize everywhere it goes. So one of the things that atheist countries and even Christian countries to a certain degree, or Christian people don't understand. In the West, we view religion as a part of life. If life is this, then your religion is here. In Islam, your religion is here. Your religion is this, and absolutely everything within life is dictated to you by your belief system. Now, I would actually argue that this is how it should be. If you believe that there is a God, it should affect absolutely every single thing that you do. And this idea that you can have some religious belief about God and the origins of the universe and the purpose and meaning of life and what happens after you die, and it remains some little compartment over here, I think that's absurd. I think it should actually be all encompassing. But within Islam, it is culturally, everything is directed by their beliefs about who God is and how life works and how you be saved from hell and all of those sorts of beliefs. It is a colonial system. They want to come in and turn whatever place they come into a Muslim country, into a country that honors and acknowledges the God that they serve. So what do we do about that? This is a great question here. Jed says, how do you separate the bad from the good? If you get the incentives right, they separate themselves. So in the case of this, my concern, people have asked questions about the cultural side of things. And I think we had a super chat related to the cultural side of things as well. Baz the Dark Horse was, so Baz has been having a bit of a chat in the super chats, and he's come back with this. Fixing the incentives does not solve the culture clash. Some cultures are not compatible. It's not good, but it's proven to be true. I agree with you. Some cultures are not compatible with ours, but there's two things that have to happen in order for their culture to come over the top of ours. One, we have to let them in, and two, we have to let them exercise their culture over ours. And the thing that we've done that I will absolutely get alongside every snag cooking, flag waving, no matter how bogan, I don't care. The thing that we've lost is the willingness to celebrate our culture. It's become very fashionable to say that we don't have one. Oh, Australian culture. Oh, what's that, like footy? Right? It's this really sneering kind of attitude about Australian culture. I think Australian culture is actually very deep and very rich, but we're not allowed to enjoy it. We're not allowed to celebrate it. We're not allowed to practice it. We're being told you can't have Australia Day. You can't have your flags. Your flags are evil now. You can't, if you've got flags coming off the back of your car, you must be some kind of a horrible racist person. We're being shamed out of our own culture. So my answer to this culture clash issue is to get really active about celebrating our culture and actually making a real point of celebrating our culture, because that then gives new arrivals something to opt into. What's really interesting is we've been told time and again, oh, they won't assimilate. The cultures aren't compatible. We were told that about the Greeks and the Italians. Because to the most, the English, Irish, and Scottish and some German immigrants that came here very, very early on, the Italians and the Greeks, they were scum of the earth. Southern Europeans, oh gosh, you wouldn't want them. Their culture is not compatible. We look at that and laugh. We say, well, no, they're Europeans. It was when the Vietnamese came along that they weren't compatible. Well, hang on. Look at the second and third generation Vietnamese, right? But the key is we've got to give them something to join. Something to celebrate, something to be a part of. So our job, in my opinion, is not to try and build Fortress Australia. It's to create in Australia something that other people look at and actually actively want to join. If we get rid of the perverse incentives and the easy money, and we become a place that people go, hey, I can have a better life if I become one of them and go over there, all of these problems fix themselves.
Yeah, I agree. Before I write my comment, I did see this comment. I'm just going to tear shreds off this dude for a second. Hang on. You both police comments without dollar signs and I'm a sub. You must be new here. The whole super chat thing is to support the channel. And if you write a decent comment, we will see it like this one. You're an idiot. Say something positive and then you'll get a shout out. Otherwise,
Well,
shut up and
you
stop
might
being
have
a little bitch.
you might have just lost a coffee subscriber. Maybe that's what he means when he says he's a sub. But also, by the way, we've had hundreds upon hundreds of comments already so far. Yeah, we've got it scrolling on the screen. It's scrolling through.
Quickly,
we cannot put those on screen and talk about them.
But contribute to the conversation. It's that simple. Like, contribute. Don't sit there and whinge and bitch. Like, if you want to contribute to the conversation, we'll pull up your comment. Like, stop whinging. Anyway,
so
Jacinda is proposing a ban on masks and protests. Yes.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Well, it is. And it's a great question, though, because there are people now saying, and especially after the police came out and they said, oh, it was mostly the left-wing protesters, blah, blah, blah. There are people on the pro-freedom side that are cheering on this idea of permits for protests. Not many, to be clear. Most people have seen straight through it. But there are some that have been sucked in. I was like, oh, yeah, we're going to stick it to the left. They're going to have to get permits to protest. No, you do not give the government
idea.
Yeah, the right to decide what's a legitimate protest or not, because sooner or later it will be used for political purposes. We know that, and we've seen that. And I think that's the point of your question here, Long Dong John. Is we've seen what they're willing to do. We've seen how partisan that they are willing to be, and I liken it to Boromir in Lord of the Rings. For me, everything comes back to Lord of the Rings. But conservatives,
here we go, drink.
Conservatives believe that they can wield the power of the ring, that they know how it should be done. And if you just give that power to me, I will be able to solve all the problems with the power of this ring. And of course they can't.
Hey, I'll give you that. That is a great analogy for where we're at. And normally I just roll my eyes, but actually you're right. Like it's the pull of the ring. And I have noticed this, and I did sort of allude to it before. I am already seeing this on the conservative side. And like you and I got accused of being conservatives the other day. They're like, this is a conservative channel. I'm like,
I went and had a shower. I felt so dirty after that.
Conservative? Me and Topher? Are you drunk?
Don't insult me like that.
No, but like, I am seeing this, and this is something that I'm trying to talk to people about as well, because it's all well and good to have this discussion, but thinking that you're better simply because you're the opposite to what we've had the last couple of years, well, that's the same. You're falling into the same trap. This trap of, well, I would do it better. And if I had the power, I would be right. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the Lord of the Rings thing. There's this pull and this coercion that comes from having those cards in your hand. And I think I've made this point before. I think when a lot of people go into politics, not all, this is a generalization, but I think most of them are somewhat decent people to a degree. I think it's the system and the swamp that corrupts them, right? And that's, a lot of, especially the young ones, and I'll say this now, a lot of those people at the left-leaning protests, aside from the antagonists, there's Antifa in there and you've got your pay-for-play people, right? Take those out.
Yeah.
If you go and have a look at the average little lefty that's going in and protesting, these guys honestly do think they stand on principles, that they believe in what they're doing. And I understand that. And I empathize with that because that's exactly what you and I encourage, to stand up for what you believe in.
Correct.
So you can't say, oh, they shouldn't be protesting because they don't believe in the right thing. No. Our sentiment has always been protest and stand up for what you believe in. But let's also have a discussion about your beliefs and let's see where we can find some common ground.
Yeah, let's have the battle of ideas, but let's not try and create different rules depending on which ideas you have as to what you can and can't do in that battle of ideas. It should be a level playing field. At the risk of taking us back a topic, Joe's got a comment here. Surely it should be focused on integration, not necessarily immigration. Cultural separation and multiculturalism hasn't worked. Thoughts? I agree wholeheartedly, and this is where a lot of people miss my fundamental point. I couldn't care less about the color of someone's skin, but I do care about culture. And this is why I'm saying we should celebrate our culture a lot more. Now, I don't think that bringing people from other cultures in is automatically the problem. Us not being allowed to celebrate and promote our culture and other people not being held accountable to the same laws is the problem, right? That's where we end up with a lot of problems. But what we see time and time again, when people come into Australia, by the second or third generation, they're Aussies. They're as Aussie as you or I. And so the cultural assimilation thing is literally that generation that arrives and maybe partly their kids. But by the time it's their kids, that culture issue is gone. What we lack is the permission within ourselves to actually really celebrate and cement and kind of promote just by living it, just living our culture and promoting it through that. That's the issue. So I am not a multiculturalist at all. I'm not a multiculturalist, but I could not care less about where you were born or what color your skin is, because I have way more in common with a Venezuelan refugee than I have with Anthony Albanese, despite the fact that he's an Aussie. Right. This is my issue with the people that then turn it into white. So some people say, oh, well, we're a European Westminster system, European culture, Judeo-Christian values. I agree. And that came out of a white Europe. Yes, it did. That is a historical fact. But it does not follow that only white people can then have that culture. That's where people seemingly just they just think that one leads to the other, and it just doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a couple of things, and I always use Japan as a good example for this. Japan up until like, a few years ago was a pretty like ethno-nationalist state, right? Like they didn't have much immigration whatsoever. Like you could go there and you could live there, but it was very difficult to get permanent residency. It was very difficult to buy land. And then someone came in who's a little bit more progressive, and sure enough, they've gotten the European treatment. They've got people coming in there, and like the Japanese culturally are a very, very polite society. And like, for those of you who haven't been to Japan, you might not know what I'm talking about, but it is, there is embedded in their culture is a level of politeness that you and I would be like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. Like it's just part of who they are. And so when you go to Japan, you instantly adopt that, because if you don't, you stand out like a sore thumb and you cause chaos. And we're now seeing that now. Like you've got a lot of people going across to Japan who are just like African migrants, Muslims, and they're causing chaos. And rightfully so. Japan's just elected a very conservative leader who's going to clamp down on that. And I agree with that, because Japan as it is a beautiful, wonderful place. Not to say it doesn't have problems. It certainly has problems. But when you let people come in like that, whose entire MO is to cause destruction and chaos, no, boot them out. Come in here. If you want to live in a very polite society, if you want to work the way that we do and do everything the way the Japanese do, then all aboard. If not, see you later. And my issue with Australians is we will sit here and let someone lecture us on what it means to be Australian or lecture us on how we should be living. What the fuck are we doing? Like when it comes to Aussies, you've always got the bogan, right? The quintessential bogan. I get accused of being a bogan all the time because I swear. I think there's nothing. Oh, no, I know, it's wild, right? There's nothing wrong with that sort of ochre Aussie, right? Like that was the endearing Crocodile Dundee Aussie, and that's fine. But there's so much richness to Aussie culture as well, whether it's the beach culture or it's our music culture. Like, but for the better part of a decade, Australians or white people in general have been taught that our culture is oppressive because of colonization. And a lot of this has come up in schools where we have to renounce our whiteness. And that's that progressive ideology that has been
colonialism.
Apologize. And you and I make this point all the time about being cancelled. You say that you can't be cancelled unless you agree to be cancelled. So same with Australian culture. You can't, like Australian culture isn't cancelled unless you agree that it is. And we saw a little bit of that last year with the Australia Day, right? Like Woolies were going to not sell Australia Day merch, or was it Coles? I can't remember which one.
I can't remember, but they got kicked in the ass for it.
And it and rightfully so, there was uproar, because I don't know at what point did the whole of Australia turn around and decide, you know what, our flag's terrible. I understand that the left hate it, but like the mass adaptation by the average Aussie, oh no, you shouldn't put a flag up. What do you mean? What do you mean? This is Australia. Of course you should put a flag up. Of course you should be able to go to Bunnings and have a sausage. Of course you should be able to walk around with flip-flops and board shorts. Like, if that's what it means to you to be an Aussie, why are you letting people shame you for it? And the issue is that squeaky wheel, that minority, and we saw this in COVID, where when you have someone screeching in your face, rather than going, hey, shut up, Aussies go, oh, okay, all right, yelly person, I'll do what you tell me to do. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We're too nice for our own good. Now, there's some amazing comments coming through that I'm seeing here. All we need is love and castle law. All we need is love and castle law. Sen09,
And dogs.
that comment would take the cake if it weren't for some of the others that I'm about to get to. Catherine Cavaney says, Jay Allen now wants to ban masks at protests. Yes, that's true. However, James Bennett's, well, he's asking the real questions. They need to have whether or not masks are banned each day on the news, like back to like an 11 o'clock presser, I think is what he's referring to. After the UV rating and before the total fireman status. No, I think that's underselling it, James. We need to have a dedicated press conference just for the mask wearing status. It's got to go for at least 45 minutes and start with the words, "You right to go?"
Stop it. I can't. It's too early. It's too soon. Is Jason D, hang on, Jason D, you picking a fight with me? What are flip-flops, thongs, whatever? Is this you starting a fight? Are you starting shit?
Listen, if you go to America and tell people that you walk around in thongs, they're gonna think it's a little bit different.
We've got a Kiwi. Jandals. I've never understood jandals. That just sounds stupid.
So sorry. Where's the ban button? How do we ban people off the show?
All right, let's start a fight in the comments. What do you guys call swimwear?
Oh gosh.
Okay. Let's go. Well, let's brawl.
While you all tear each other to shreds. So Joe comes back with this comment. Why don't we just use a bond system and put things in place where they have to do constructive things before they get access to Social Security? I would say we actually do this with HEX. So if you work, the debt is forgiven or the debt gets repaid. So there are different countries that do different things. There is a bond. The idea of a bond system is not a bad one. And I'm going to put aside my libertarian ideals of having a world without passports and just say, look, if we're going to have an immigration system, if we're going to have quotas and restrictions and everything else, which is what we've got and we're going to have probably for the rest of my lifetime, then how do you best do that? A bond system is one way to do it. But that's not necessarily always in the best interest of the country. So just because someone's got money doesn't mean that they're actually going to be a real contribution to the country. So we would want to have not just a bond system, not just a pay-to-play system. Another way that it's been done, and Canada did this, I'm not sure if they still do, but I think this is an intriguing idea, is where immigrants can be sponsored by citizens. And you say, right, you're going to put up a financial bond, you're going to bring them over, they're going to live with you. You're responsible for them getting a job, for them integrating into society, for them learning the language. Now, I've got a lot of sympathy for this because my in-laws have actually spent the last 30 odd years housing international students. And they've made their home available as a home where they come as the very first place they stay in Australia. A lot of them without a single word of English. And they cook for them and they bring them into the family meals and they have family conversations with them and literally force them to talk, force them to listen, force them to interact and be a part of that. Check in with them. Hey, what's your plan today? Do you know how to get where you're trying to get to, etc. And obviously within a few months, they've found their feet. Some of them then move out and go to other accommodation. Others actually have lived with them for over 10 years in the case of one particular individual living in their house. And so they're literally performing that function, but they're performing it for students. These are people on student visas. They come over here, they get their degree, they pay their fees, and then they leave. But a similar thing for people that wanted to stay. But there's actually an Australian citizen who has money on the line. They've had to put up a bond, and they're actually liable for these people, and they actually have to get invested and involved in their lives. And I think if you turned around to a lot of the real bleeding heart refugee type people and said, hey, everybody, okay, we'll take in refugees. How many would you like? They have to live in your home. They have to eat their meals with you. You are responsible for whether or not they know any English after they've been here for 1 year. You are responsible for making sure that their bills get paid, whether that means they get work or whether that means they're on you. That's up to you, but you're responsible for that. How many of those bleeding hearts would continue to have their hand in the air? Probably not many.
That would really upset the champagne socialists, the NIMBYs. Yeah. Oh, yes, bring them in, but no, not in my house. Yeah. And you saw that, there was no better example of that when I think it was Texas sent the busloads of migrants over to Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard,
was a perfect example. And they're like, you know what? I'm fine. If you want all these migrants, have them. And they're like, oh, no, not here. Oh, no, we don't have the resources. Yeah. I've only got 50 spare bedrooms. It just wouldn't work. Right?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they care about walls.
Yes. Aspen, can you please go away? I have a dog trying to make me play with her. Go away. And I don't want to do a Hassan Piker. Go away.
She's jealous because last time I showed up at your house to record an oddcast, you'd left a dog toy on the table right in my spot. So
that same toy is now being thrown at my foot.
All right. So Ricky Hammer says mass migration is a tool used by the rivals of the Anglosphere to break our hegemony. The exact goal to cause crime and chaos and sow division is laid bare in front of us all to see. Yes, but also we're doing it to ourselves with the perverse incentives. I won't re-prosecute that case. Such a strategy would not work unless we were stupid. Unfortunately, we're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Just to tangent the conversation for a second, the general consensus when it comes to what we call
tangent time. Tangent time. All right.
Do you reckon everyone at home does the same thing? Do they all like, guys?
I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Do you all get do you get your wiggle on?
Yeah, they're all just like they walk around the house going tangent time, tangent time. I asked before, like, what do we call bathers? And the general consensus was bathers or togs. And then I saw this comment, and where is it? I started, and like, insert username is trying to start some shit. So let's have it out. Let's have it out. Potato scallops. All right. Out. In the bin.
I only have one bottle of wine with me. I am not equipped. I am not equipped for this conversation. I need at least 2 or 3 bottles of wine if we're gonna have this conversation.
In the bin. Who calls them potato scallops?
Especially seeing as scallops are actually their own thing. Like there is such a thing as a scallop. So I just no.
That'll start a fight. But so I got sidetracked by that. I was just like, how dare you? How very dare you?
Baz is right. Baz is right. We were allowed to love Australia all the way up until about the Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be around about the turning point. I don't think the Olympics were the cause of the turning point, but it was around about then. It was in there somewhere where all of a sudden we made room. We apologized for the first time to the woke mob. And, you know, we've talked about this before. You never apologize. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't apologize to the woke mob. And the reason they are the same thing, by the way, for those that haven't heard me talk about this before, the reason we don't negotiate with terrorists is because they're not looking for a settlement. They will take everything you give them today, and then they will use that as leverage to come back for more later.
Correct.
There is no making peace with them. The same is true of the woke mob. The reason you never cave to the woke mob is because even if it gives you a temporary reprieve, which is no guarantee it will only be a temporary reprieve at best, because they will come back for more. Their appetite is insatiable. At some point around about the Sydney Olympics time, around about year 2000, we as a country, as a culture, apologized to the woke mob for the first time. And it has all been downhill ever since then.
Yeah, there's definitely been, I remember I was at high school, the early 2000s, right? I think I graduated 2003. And in those last couple of years, there was definitely that little conversation around, oh, like, look what we did to the Aboriginals. We're terrible people. And it was starting then. And it's interesting because people think woke started like the pandemic. No, it's insidious. It's been growing like black mold for the last couple of decades, and it went unchecked. And you guys have heard me make this point 100 times, but we have to take back the institutions. And I know people are like, oh, I don't want to go to uni. I'm not saying you, but this is where it started. Like,
should we have our glasses ready? Are we about to have to drink?
I wasn't going to say it. I was talking in a broader sense, but I can say it if you.
No, fine.
I can say it if you. Okay. No, all right. I'll give you an example. No. I'll do it. I know you guys all need an excuse to drink, so I will give it to you. So I got my exegesis read by a professor at a different university, and I just wanted someone with a master's. There you go. You good? Everyone? Go. I just wanted his take, right? I just wanted someone else's eyes on it because it's a contentious topic. There's 2 contentious things about it. 1, I'm going up against feminism. 2, I'm going up against AI. Oh, I'm pro AI, right? So I'm literally going into the lion's den. You don't touch the sacred cow, and feminism is a sacred cow. And here I am, gentlemen in the chat. I am arguing for you guys. Like, I am going into bat for men, right? And I know that paper is going to get me in trouble. And the second thing to that is, as a creative, me being pro AI is like, I'm going to basically start World War III. And so if I'm going to put a paper like that out there, an academic paper, I need to know that, as like content aside, it works perfectly in the academic sense, right? Like my opinions aside. And so I just wanted to make sure, like, it was formatted correctly, the right words, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, he wrote back and he said, this is a great paper. And he's like, I definitely believe you are contributing to the conversation, but I just want to warn you, if you publish this, it will cause you some distress. And I was like, brilliant. Because let's do it. Let's go. So I'm going to put it out there and start the conversation, but that's what it takes. It's not about abandoning these places. It's about going, how can we, in whatever capacity as an individual, start to take that space back a bit? On Australia Day, go and celebrate Australia Day. Go and wear your Australian flag. It's it's a way of protesting that's not, holding the CBD to ransom. Me going to university and doing what I've always wanted to do. This isn't a new thing. I've always wanted to do this. And now that I'm doing it on my terms, my way. Yes, there's friction. Yes, there's people biting back. But, someone has to go first. Someone has to bulldoze through.
And you didn't go there to just fit in and become one of them. You went there to push yourself and to sharpen your ideas in order to contribute. And that's what universities have historically been for, is for people like you who want to get in there and disagree and debate and get pushed and get better. And you went in there with that objective, but clearly that doesn't really fit in that environment anymore.
Well, this is what Charlie Kirk was doing, right? And this is why they hated him so much. As you said previously, he was giving them the microphone. He was encouraging those people to the conversation. And my biggest concern, and this is kind of what I've been alluding to all night, my biggest concern is we're going to shut the conversation down going, no, you've had your turn. It's our go. Right? And whether it's the right, the conservatives, whatever you want to call it, the opposite to the progressive left are going to go, no, shut up. You've had your go. It's our go. And that's not the right way either. There needs to be an olive branch at some point. And some of these people just genuinely need someone to have a conversation with. And I know this because for the most part, I don't know about you. I mean, you've got a bit more of a recognizable face than me. But when I go into my uni lectures or different locations, I'm not saying, hey, I'm Carl's the libertarian. Hi, I have a podcast. For the most part, I don't say a bloody word. I don't bring up politics. And yet I can tell you now, when you're in these chats, the leftists do. Within a second, they'll say that, Trump's big bad Hitler and, that's the same tropes that they roll out.
That's your sashes.
So what's funny about this?
They've got to advertise their 100%. Sashes.
100%. I honestly, I thought this was the funniest thing when we went back to the last trimester. That the next recruit of people were in there, and you sort of go around and introduce yourselves. And this woman, exactly what you expected her to look like all the things. The first thing out of her mouth was, I'm here for the queer people because, as you guys know, we have Trump in and fascism is taking over. And I was like, yes, that is very on brand. You look like the stereotype. You guys don't like stereotypes, but boy,
do you know how to look like them. Now, there's
the reason I bring that up. Sorry, go.
No, you finish that. We need to get across to a super chat here before somebody completely drains their bank account. But finish your point, and then we've got to rescue this person.
Yeah. So my point with that was I don't go out there saying I'm a conservative, I like Trump, whatever. Until they get to know me a bit, and then they might ask a question, and I give not deliberately, not to antagonize them, but I give them a little bit more of a centrist or more right-leaning answer, and they go, "Oh, is that how you feel?" I'm like, "Yeah." But they already know that I'm a nice person, I've been courteous, I'm nice to have a conversation with. And then the politics comes out, and it's really interesting because that's how you have the conversation. You don't go in there trying to fight them because you're never going to get the result. That's what Charlie Kirk did, and that's what Dave Rubin did, and that's what's lacking at the moment. I would have hoped that more people would try to come into Charlie's space and going, hey, he set the precedent, let's see what we can do. But I feel like we're seeing the opposite.
Look, give it some time. There will be people. Charlie was already an outlier. Charlie was not one of many. The reason why he had such an impact and why his death had such an impact was because he was so unique in what he did. And I did a video breaking that down, exactly what you've been talking about. He would meet people where they were at. He would look for the moment where he could say, I agree. And he would drill deeper and deeper down into their why. Why do you care about this? What is it, until he would find a point of agreement? Because ultimately, most people, not everybody, but the vast majority of people in the end actually just want life to be better. And they care about others. They care about themselves. They care about their kids. They care about people they see as being marginalized or victimized. And so he would look for that point where he could say, I agree. and then he would work from there. But also, what you just said is exactly why it's so important, and it's so pleasing to me that the March for Australia people are now being recognised as having not been the troublemakers, because they are breaking people's ideas and stereotypes of who's who and how they behave and all of that. And all it would have taken was for a small number of them to get hot under the collar and go and do something stupid, and that whole narrative would have been ruined. But none of them did. And
which is
that's
great.
what
I think that
it's so good. It's so good, and just massive credit to them.
I
now
think
I
they've
need
learned,
to.
they're starting to
You go.
learn how to not play the system. That's the wrong way of saying it, but they've learned how to show up, right? Which is great.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a maturation of them protesting, which is good.
And look, it took us 9 months to get discipline in the ranks of the anti-lockdown protests, right? And the movement didn't grow until we got that discipline. It was once we actually had that discipline in the ranks and people began to streamline their message, get rid of the messages that were just muddying the waters, get rid of the real ratbag behavior, that's when we actually started to see some growth. Now, I want to jump into this because Mainstream Slaps, I think, has actually made this comment and then went on to make another comment that's very, very similar a little while later. I'm not sure, perhaps thinking that we hadn't seen the first one or anything. So I just want to get to this before he then digs even deeper into his bank account and pulls out yet another one. Sorry, we are a little bit behind on the comments, but we do appreciate the support, Mainstream Slaps. So the first comment, which is very much the second one as well, I disagree with you on mass migration. And so that would essentially mean agreeing more with you, Carly. The speed impacts the culture and infrastructure of small, vulnerable population nations. Pace matters. Fixing the how is not enough. Old migration was better. Why? Well, I will say this. If you think that old migration was better because it was slower, you'd be wrong. If you take every decade since the end of World War II and starting, so World War II finished in 45, so take 46 to 55 and then 56 to 65 and then 66 to 75, and so take each decade from halfway through the decade and just do the math on that, because we're halfway through a decade again now. So the numbers work out nicely. The last 2 decades have been exactly average. Of all of the decades, 8 decades now since the end of World War II, they've been exactly average. Right. And this is what people don't understand. This is why I get so fired up about this. If you think that immigration is the problem, you're missing the fact that something is much more fundamentally broken in this country. We have, in fact, built enough houses for everybody. The number of dwellings per person in this country is the highest it has ever been. It is the best it has ever been. We have more dwellings per person than we've ever had before. So it's not immigration that's caused the housing crisis. I know it looks like that. I know that that's the easy scapegoat. I know that that's the thing that you can look at and go, well, that makes sense. But we are broken at a far more fundamental level. The numbers tell us very, very clearly we have enough houses. What we don't have are affordable houses. What we don't have are enough density of houses in the areas that people want to live. What we have is an overregulated housing sector that doubles the costs and halves the availability, turning it into an artificial Hunger Games that doesn't need to exist. What we don't have is too much migration. What we have is not enough celebration of our own culture and not enough enforcement of our laws. If we change the incentives, enforce our laws, all of that fixes itself. So this is why I get so fired up, because I know the numbers. I've done videos on this stuff. I'm sorry, the old migration wasn't better because it was less. It was better because we actually just expected people to work. Go and get a job, you mug. Don't be a bludger. Go and get a job, you bum. We didn't put up with the kind of behavior that we're putting up with from people now. And so this is the second comment from the same person, Mainstream Slaps. I disagree with being okay with mass migration. The speed alone impacts the culture and infrastructure of small, vulnerable population nations. Gentle migration is great, but pace matters. Fixing the how is not enough without fixing speed. So that was kind of the second version of that. But Carly, I know you've got a different view on that.
Look, I do and I don't. I understand what you're saying on paper, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. But my issue, and it's the same issue I have with youth crime, is that once it gets to a point where it's too out of control, you do have to make a sweeping change. There needs to be big reform. So at the moment,
you're right on that. You're right on that.
Yeah. Look, and at the moment, there's a couple of things, right? Like collectively across the world, all the way down to states in Victoria, we are like, we're at DEFCON 2, right? Like things are getting pretty heated. And everyone keeps saying, oh, we're going to bring the temperature down. You know what you do? take the stress out of it. Stop mass migration for a minute because it seems to be really upsetting a lot of people. Also, it's putting a lot of strain on resources. That's true. But you're also accurate in the housing market is absolutely diabolical. That is also true. My issue is when we have all these little grass fires, everyone's concentration and focus is all over the place. What we need is just to really strip it back to basics. What does it mean to be an Australian? What are our core values? And build back from there. Because at the moment, I think we have a values issue in this country. At the moment, we are being forced to adopt the values from the progressive left. And I made a video on this a long time ago, and I stand by this. If you don't have your own values, other people will force you to adopt theirs. And this isn't anything to do with politics. This is just people at large. Life has been too comfortable and too easy for too long. And because of that, there is no incentive to try or to truly care. Now, to just bring it back to a basic example, right? And basically around uni, there is a common thread at uni saying that says, P's get degrees. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, a P is a pass. A P is 50%. So if you just put in the bare minimum, you'll still get the same piece of paper as the person who's getting HDs, which is 85 and above, right? But so they go, oh, well, I'm getting the same outcome. So why would I try? It's no different to the person who rocks up at exactly 9 o'clock and clocks off at exactly 5 p.m. Oh, well, you know, why would I put in any extra work? That mentality is across the board, across most people. Why? Because life has been too good. They don't understand why you need that. And you guys have heard me talk about chicken in the noodle aisle. It all boils down to the exact same thing. We are valueless. Now, those of you who are religious leaning, you'll say, well, I have my values. Okay, you are a small minority of people. We are mostly secular in Australia. And you don't have to like that. But that's the reality. Most people are quite secular or atheist. They don't, they're not practicing. And what that means is these people aren't thinking daily, what do I value? What do I care about? What's my incentive to show up in my own life? And you know how you can see this manifest? How many people are on SSRIs? How many people are now ADHD? How many people now are miserable? Life's too hard. I shouldn't have to do that. The government should give me more. All of this boils down to values. That's how I look at it. You need to give people a reason to fight, to wake up and get out of bed. Jordan Peterson used to do this, right? For like the last 15 years of his career, he was talking about getting out of bed and making your bed. And people laugh and they go, oh, what's that got to do with politics? Well, that's how it starts. You got to empower people. You got to get people a reason to want to show up. And Aussies don't get it.
If only Jordan Peterson had read Chicken in the Noodle Aisle, he might have been able to have a better way to communicate those ideas. All right, we've got to blast through a couple.
Can take my idea. I'll give it to him.
That's nice of you. We've got to blast through a couple of super chats because we still have not got to the situation in Victoria and Jacinta Allen, and we cannot finish this
literally episode. 50 screenshots just waiting to be played.
All right, so let's get through some stuff. Have you guys seen the latest South Park episode of Mocking Peter Thiel? It's mocking him on his lectures on the Antichrist. I haven't actually watched a South Park episode in a long time, which is sad because they're awesome and I really like them.
I keep telling you about South Park. We have talked about it on the podcast.
I love South Park. They're awesome, but I don't get the time to watch anything at the moment apart from work-related stuff. Joe Cameron, I bought an Oz flag to put in the front of my house. I was so happy that my neighbor bought one too. Irony is we both bought from overseas. I don't think you've got a choice, Joe. Is there any genuinely like Australian-made flags out of Australian materials? Maybe there are, but I wouldn't know where to look to find them. And we have the only ones on our street. Well, good on you, Joe. Jandals and the word moist. Moving on from that comment.
Actually, hang on, bring that back. That is exactly how I feel. Jandals to me is like when people say the word moist. I agree. There are words in the English language that when they come out of someone's mouth, you just like, it's just Jandals is up there. I would agree.
All right. Moving on, Joe Cameron, Carl's, I'll buy your dog a dog toy if you could call it Elbow. We definitely need we need to set up like a mailing address for the dogs so that people can send gifts to your puppies.
I know, like I'm being silly, but she's driving me nuts. Did you see that? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say I don't want to be a Hassan Piker? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
No, none.
Do you know who Hassan Piker is? Sorry.
The name is familiar, but I don't know why.
So he's a streamer. He's Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks' nephew, and he's like a
Right,
rabid
okay.
socialist. And there's a big hoo-ha around him at the moment because he had a shock collar on his dog. And during a
Right.
live stream, his poor dog gets up to like move around on his bed. And you can see him press the shock collar and he scolds the dog. And so isn't it interesting how the mask with these people always slips? And that's why I was like, oh, I don't want to do a Hassan Piker right now. It's a terrible joke. But anyway, just giving you context.
That's right. I ignored you like I ignore everything else you say. So that was
Excellent.
fine.
On brand.
So Catherine Cavaney is suggesting that when we changed, I think this is harking back to talking about when we sort of started to bow to the woke mob. So 2007 was when Rudd became Prime Minister, Kevin 07. But yes, I mean, around that time he was in the ascendancy. And of course, he set up the whole sorry thing, the apology. He would certainly have been a part of that. I would suspect that the movement was already kind of on, though. And that he kind of rode that. I don't know that he was in the driver's seat. I think he was a passenger riding that wave.
Can I add something to that? Because Kevin 07 was literally when I was coming out of uni for the first time. And I remember, like, I grew up in a liberal household. I've said that multiple times. But, you know, for the most part, I was so apolitical, especially like 18, 19, 20, couldn't give a shit. And I remember there were people in my university talking about Kevin 07. And I just went by what my parents said, like John Howard was the best. You know, we don't vote Labor in this house. And I remember them saying to me, it's like it's stuck out, and I've remembered it all these years. It's saying like, we need someone in Parliament who has a heart, right? That was the comment, and that started like that would have been 2005, 2006, and that was the whole thing. We need politicians who care. So it's been insidious for a long time. It's been growing for ages. It's just gotten to a point where we're all beaten dogs and we don't stand up for like all the things that we agree on. So these people have been able to gain all that extra space in the argument. And when you talk about it now, like go and look at what they were protesting on the weekend when we get to the Melbourne protests. Read what their slogans were saying. We don't want fascists here, as they literally behave like fascists. You know, we love all people. All of this has come down to just believing that if you've got a heart, then you will adopt the left side. And what that does, it's like really subversive. People go, well, I do have a heart and I do care. I don't want to be seen as heartless. And that's where it all stems from, you know?
But it's also, so at the same election, the Kevin 07 election, I had a friend of mine who's in the arts and he's a genuinely great guy. He posted on whatever social media platform we were using back then. I can't remember if we were on Facebook by then or if it was still MySpace or whatever. He posted up saying there's more to life than the economy.
Oh,
and I replied and said, that's very easy to say when the economy is good. Right. And that was the exchange back then. And all of my lived experience since then with what I've seen as I've traveled. And yes, if you've got your drinks handy, especially when I went to Venezuela.
Oh, God. Quick.
Warn your liver, it's coming. Has really reinforced that view. It's very easy to talk about bleeding heart, compassion, welfare, blah, 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 when the economy is good. But when things turn to shit because you didn't actually look after the economy, well, then everyone suffers. And it comes back to that thing I say all the time. If you think it's hard being poor in a rich country, wait till you try being poor in a poor country, right? Or if you think it's hard being disabled in a rich country, wait till you're disabled in a poor country. It's not going to go well. And unfortunately, that's the world we've created.
I remember having that exact conversation at the beginning of COVID. And boy, did I get absolutely torn apart for that. You know, people go, oh, we need to save lives. We need to save lives. The economy doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, you'll care about that when those chickens come home to roost.
That's right. Anyway. So this is some breaking news from one of our viewers. Thank you, CL. Vance is now meant to be attending the Trump elbow meeting.
Please, Donald, please turn the lights down and roll the TV in.
Because Vance is going to take a personal interest in what our Karen is doing. I've done a multitude of videos about that. I won't bore you with the details. Go back in my channel. JD Vance has a personal interest in what our Karen is doing in the same way that he took a personal interest in what the UK government did when they tried to stop Apple from doing end-to-end encryption. I'll leave that there because many of you will have watched my videos. But if you don't know what I'm talking about,
something's afoot. If JD Vance is going to be in there, something's afoot. They've got something up their sleeve. I'm not too sure what it is. I was reading the summary about all the points that they think they're going to be talking about, and I was like, I don't think Trump's going to let that slide. Sorry.
Yeah. Pluto pups or Dagwood dogs. Is this someone trying to start another argument about what to call things?
Yeah, people are starting fights.
I don't know what either of those things are. I couldn't actually tell you what a Dagwood dog. I've heard of them, but I don't know what a Dagwood dog looks like or what it is.
A Dagwood dog's like is that the battered sausage on a stick?
I don't know.
Is that what that is?
You tell me.
Corn dog?
No idea. No idea. Anyone know if you can get shirts like Big Kev had, as in like Big Kev, who was he the
mobile show guy that used to have the sprays, like Big Kev's carpet cleaning and all that? He used to be on all the morning shows like Kerry Ann Kennelly and all that. Gosh. And then he was a criminal or something, wasn't he?
I have no idea.
You remember all of that show?
I also don't really remember it. No.
And Bert Newton, what was the show that Bert Newton used to host?
Don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? Yeah, see, Big Kev, CJ Westman, Big Kev was a cleaning guy. Thank you. He was, yeah.
All right, okay, fine. Fine.
But, okay, hang on. Okay.
We're going back to it?
Oh, I just saw a super chat, this one here. Peanut butter or peanut paste. Now, James, you are, no one calls it peanut paste. Sorry.
Literally nobody on the planet. You are taking the piss, James Bennett. You've overplayed your hand. We've found you out. You're just stirring the pot. You made that up.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Are you guys, Carl's in particular, not going to the march, such as Sundays, as it's too risky for you in the current violent climate? I don't think there should be an issue with any sort of ordinary person going to any of these marches. I don't imagine that would be an issue at all. As we've seen, even down in Melbourne, where there were issues, the issues weren't on the side of the March for Australia guys or the anti-immigration guys or whatever, because obviously there's different organisers promoting different things. If you agree with the cause, if you agree with what they're protesting for, show up, right? Go and support. You'll have a great time. Just make sure you got a big smile on your face and you stay away from any idiots. Just keep an eye out for any potential idiots and just don't be where they are. Honestly, the chance of running into any proper idiots is really slim, right? It really is. You'll have a great time. You'll meet lots of great people and you'll get fond memories from it. If you believe in the cause, show up. I'm not going because I don't view immigration as the issue. So therefore, why would I show up? I'd be a fraud. People keep saying to me, why aren't you speaking at these rallies? Because I would be a fraud if I showed up. And, people accuse me of being a grifter and just wanting audiences and this and that. No. That would be if I just got in front of every single protest that I could possibly get an invitation to, that would be that, right? But I'm not interested in that. That's not what I do. But if you believe in the cause, go, show up, have fun. You'll have a good time. Yeah.
My answer to that is I literally, CPU is full. I can't do anything else at the moment. I am overwhelmed. And guys, 1, 2, 3, I have my master's due literally in like 9 days.
I took a preemptive drink. I already took a sip.
And look, and not to make light of it, like if you agree with it, please go. Like I'm not discouraging people either way. The first one that happened, I wasn't on board with just because of all the hoo-ha with the NSN. That was anti that. But just for the record and just so it's out there, like I've already had people coming to me saying, why aren't you speaking about this? Why aren't you covering this? And I'm like, guys, I can't be all places at all times on every topic. It's exhausting. I can't do it. And I appreciate that people want me to weigh in, but like, I can't be everywhere. So at the moment, I'm prioritizing something. That's my honest answer. I know people want me to say something else, but like, that's my honest answer. I just don't have the time at the moment. I'm sorry.
And keep in mind with Carly, so I do this full time now, right? And so I'm able to, I get enough views on YouTube, enough people buy me coffees, enough people buy my shirts. I'm able to get by doing this full time now. For Carly, you still have to work. You're still earning a living. You don't have an audience size big enough yet to be able to kind of just do that. So your bandwidth is much more restricted than what mine is. I'm giving a genuine 75 plus hours a week of actual work to this because I can. In your case, you have to earn a living and pay bills and do all of that. And then you give time on top of all of that. So your bandwidth is, unfortunately, and we're working on that. We're trying to change that.
But
that's the reality at the moment. All right. Scallop is the type of slice to cut it into its shape. It doesn't raise in an oven like a cake. I'm slightly confused by the second part of that.
No, because we call it potato cakes. He's like, it's not a potato cake because it doesn't rise in the oven.
Oh, right. Okay.
I will have none of this. Sorry. We will fight to the death on this. It is a potato cake. That is what it's called. It's not a potato scallop. And that's the end of it. Hang on. Just for the record, He's backing me up, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's going to get lucky for that. Daniel Abel says, I'm lucky my landlord refuses to up my rent. I'm lucky. Yes.
Yeah,
Keep
you're
that
lucky.
landlord. Yeah, keep that landlord for sure. All
That's
right.
a whole other debate. Maybe we can talk about that on Wednesday because I know we've got to get to the other stuff. But Jacinta Allen has come out with a new policy basically saying that bond will carry over from one property to the next. And I first heard that. I was like, you know what? As a renter, I think that's a great idea. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, I don't think I like the government coming into this, but we'll have that out on Wednesday.
So did that used to be the case? I'm sure I have done something along that line. When I used to be a renter, I am sure something like that happened.
Or maybe look back in the olden days. I don't know, man. I'm not prehistoric, but since I've been an adult, no.
When I first moved out of home, I was living in a rental in the western suburbs. I'm sure there was some kind of a sign over the bond between. I'm sure there was something. I don't know. Anyway,
I've been renting since 2005, and I can say that in that time, no. But it's interesting because that I was just looking at that story because on the surface level, I was like, wow, that's actually a good idea. We've literally just moved. We just went through that experience ourselves. And then, as I always do, I was reading through the comments, and the divide between the landlord and the renter is so bad now. Like, it's all these generalizations. All renters are terrible and all renters are going to ruin your property. All landlords are greedy. They're going to be terrible. And I just feel like the media and the government is making that worse. So, Daniel, good luck and well done that you have a good landlord. And tell them that you appreciate it too.
Yeah. All right. So Pro Engineer's pushing back. It says the issue I have with TOFA's reasoning re-immigration rates is that it assumes a consistent demographic makeup per decade when we know that that is absolutely not the same in the last 20 years. The second half of your sentence is correct. It's not the same. The first half, the premise, I would say is not correct because throughout my life, I've been hearing fear campaigns about the current wave of immigrants. So my parents can remember when the scare was around the Greeks and Italians. I don't remember that. I'm too young for that. The scare when I was very young was the Lebanese. Oh, they're different. They're not the same. They're not like the Greeks and Italians were. These guys are trouble. Oh, the gangs, the Lebanese gangs. And then that faded pretty quickly because there wasn't that big of a deal. And then it was the Vietnamese. And these Vietnamese, they're not like, they're not from Europe. They're not from Europe at all. They're not even from the Middle East. This is a whole other kettle of fish. They're not going to assimilate. And look at them all in St. Albans. They're taking over St. Albans. They're just creating their own ghettos, blah, blah, blah. I heard all of that. I grew up around all of that. So I understand that it feels like this is unique in the last 20 years because it is a different demographic. You're absolutely right. But the fear around each of these demographics, I have heard consistently, literally, I can remember it going back to when I was, well, what am I now? I was maybe not even 10. And I have a memory, I would have been maybe 12 at the oldest. I have a memory about exactly this conversation happening about Lebanese people. Right, it's not like the others. It's different this time.
Yeah, okay.
A mate of mine in primary school. So I went to primary school for a few years before I homeschooled. A mate of mine, Rodrigo. He was from not Spain. What's the other one? Right on the jolly Portugal. Thank you. He was Portuguese. And he used to cop it from other kids at school. They were really cruel to him because his English wasn't good. And so he and I befriended him. We were friends and we hung out and his English got better over the couple of years that I knew him before his family moved somewhere else in Australia. And I copped it because I was friends with him and, things were said and some really unkind things were said and done to him. And a few things were done to me because of my friendship with him, but nothing like what he copped. And I don't know. I think that's really been quite influential for me. When I sit here and I hear all this stuff now, I go, well, no, I've heard this before. This is really familiar. I know the people who were targeted in exactly these ways 30 years ago. They were my friends back then, and no one's complaining about them now. We've moved on to the next scare campaign. So, Pro Engineer, I understand your point. And you are correct. The demographics are absolutely different. And I do share Carly's concerns when it comes to Islam. I do share some of that. But fundamentally, that scare campaign, it's the same. It's the same scare campaign.
All right. Joe.
Yeah.
Affordability and trans.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah. No, you read this. I've talked too much.
Affordability and transport kill basic productivity. You have nurses that have to travel for sometimes 3 hours a day to help an area they can never live in. This is simply unacceptable. I would agree with you, Joe. I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think to put words in Tova's mouth, I think you made this point before, but I think this ties into it. There isn't those lower rungs on the property ladder. So
Correct.
we're getting priced out of these suburbs because there's no cheap properties. You know, everything is being redeveloped. And as someone who's living in an area of Melbourne that has been gentrified at like lightning speed, you know, I'm down in the Bayside area where every single block is now getting, not every single block, but like most houses have been flattened and 20 homes are going on top, but these houses are now selling for like well into $2 million. So what was like a little correction of granny flats, you know, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, you know, 1 bathroom, they don't exist anymore. No one's building those. And I mean, Topher, you've made videos on this, so.
Yeah, and the issue there is it's not profitable to build affordable housing anymore. The costs of construction are so high. The process is so slow, and the cost of carry is so high while you go through that process that developers have no choice but to go for top dollar. They're all going for the luxury market because that's the only way you can make ends meet as a developer now. But I would add, Joe, there is another layer to this, and this doesn't work for everybody, but it would work for some people. Rural areas are crying out for nurses, doctors, mechanics, you know, IT people. Like, there are so many industries. You know, I've moved out to a regional center. It's one of the larger regional centers, but it is a regional center. People are crying out up here. And I tell you what, to go and live on the fringe of Albury-Wodonga puts you 12 minutes away from the center of town, as opposed to being forced down to the fringe of Melbourne puts you, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours away from the center of town. You can live so much better and so much cheaper. And by and large, the ability to earn is not that different. So your cost of living tends to be lower. You know, your individual choices will affect that, but your cost of living tends to be lower.
This is old mate who I scolded before. He's cracked his shit. Can I just add something to this? You're behaving like a leftist, my friend. You are behaving like one of our progressive lefties. You are being the squeaky wheel because you feel ignored, because we're not giving you the attention. But now that you have it, do you feel better? Do you need me to rub your tummy?
I took his comment off the screen because you've already given him more screen time than he deserves. So Joe, I'll finish this comment. You're absolutely right. It's a huge problem. It does need to be addressed because we can't ask people to work in places where they can't afford to live. Like, that's absurd. However, at an individual level, someone who's in that circumstance, it won't work for everyone, like I said, because people have reasons why they are living where they are. But for people where they're living there just because of their work, have a look at a transfer. Have a look at whether your skills and knowledge and qualifications are desperately needed in a regional center. Because I tell you what, I was told by people, once you move out of the big cities, you'll never regret it. You'll never look back. You'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. Well, I can tell you, I did it 2.5 years ago, and I wonder why I didn't do it sooner. It's been fantastic.
I will add to that, though. There's a cultural part of that too that I think is going ignored. Social media plays a huge role in that, right? Like the whole FOMO thing. When you look at what's going on social media, particularly with the younger generation, they want to be around it and amongst it. And, you know, there's this whole like, it's all happening here. If you're not here, you're excluded. When it comes to the regional centers and things like that, it's a totally different way of life. We live, and you guys can argue with me, but if you ever dare to go over to TikTok and have a look at TikTok, very scary place. I don't go there often. It's like, it's a big shadowy place, right? So you don't go there. But you go have a look at how a lot of these young ones live their lives. It's hyper consumption, hyper trend focused, and they need to be there. The idea of going out to a regional center to live sounds terrifying. And I will say this. I grew up in Sunbury, and my university place was Warrnambool. Talk about a huge sea change, right? So I went from being like a borderline city slicker. So Sunbury is always like half city, half country. I was the city, my brother was the country. And I always imagined I was going to go to Melbourne University in the city, and I'd go to the nightclubs. And then fate, as they say, had a sense of humor because they're like, oh, you thought you were going to do that? We're sending you to bloody Warrnambool, right? Which is the end of the earth. And it was honestly the best thing that ever happened to me. I do not regret that at all. It was like those 4 years in Warrnambool were some of my best memories. We had such a wonderful time. This is obviously before social media, but that's a big part of it as well. Like, our culture has shifted around to, you know, very trend focused, very much if you're not here, you're not cool, you're not included. And when it comes to the regional towns, there's not a lot that's incentivizing, you know, young ones to stay or for families to move out there. Apart from money, it's got to be more than just, hey, you'll save money here. Do you know what I mean?
I'm actually loving the lifestyle where we are. I'm getting outdoors more. I have lost a bit of weight. That's been helped by me doing more walking and now more mountain biking and things like that as well. I get more fresh air. I get more sunshine. Just being outdoors is so much more inviting in a place that is just less frantic and less busy. But I will say you do miss out on some things. And I would say particularly the thing that I've missed out on by moving out of Melbourne is it's probably a half a dozen times of being stabbed. I probably would have had like the half dozen. I'd be doing well on the loyalty card at the local emergency room by now if I'd have stayed in Melbourne, and I've missed out on that. So yeah, you're right. You do miss out on some things.
Yeah. My best mate's parents were Italian migrants who moved here in their 40s, were able to save and buy a block of land and build a garage and live in that with 2 kids as they slowly build a house. Something regulations have stopped. Yeah, I mean, big fella, I agree. And Topher and I have actually talked about this, both of us, when we, growing up and the way we did things. And, like when we moved back to Australia, my parents put us in the house and didn't have carpet, didn't have blinds, and you grew into the house. But now you literally can't do that. Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
You
know? And this is a massive problem. Constantine Kissin gave a great speech about this at the ARC launch that you and I were at, Carly, talking about the fact that if people can't own a property, they don't feel like they can start a family, and they don't feel like they've got roots. They don't feel like they actually belong. And this comes back to the Australian culture thing. If we want people to want to become Australian, we have to want to be Australian ourselves. We have to celebrate that. It has to mean something. But how do you do that when you're unmoored? So many people are saying, I'm never going to own a property. I'm never going to have kids because I can't afford it. Some people don't want to, that's fine. But some people are saying, well, I can't afford it. I'd love to have kids. I can't afford it. I can't justify that. I can't take time out of work, blah, blah, blah. Well, now you've got people who are unmoored. But now think about it. You bring in immigrants and you put them into a situation where they didn't even grow up here. They weren't born here. And now they won't be able to afford a house. They can't afford to live well. They're unmoored in exactly the same way. The thing is, they were never anchored here in the first place. And then we wonder why they don't want to become Australian. Why aren't they assimilating? Well, most of them are, to be fair. But the ones that aren't, it's like, well, we're not giving them the opportunity the way the big fella's here talking about with his parents, where they could actually get here, save up money, work a job, buy a block of land, build a house, and start a life. We've got to fix that. And a lot of these other problems fix themselves.
Oh, look, I agree. I mean, G and I had a conversation, with his mum about 4 or 5 months ago. And, I was sort of saying to her, like, I've resigned to the fact that I'm likely to never own a house unless my finances just radically change, right? Like I'm start to have huge surplus amounts of cash, which, guys, buy some coffees. But you know what I mean? Like, realistically, I like, as circumstances are, the idea of me being able to save up, $250,000 to have as a deposit to then buy a house that isn't actually, as one of the super chats said before, isn't anywhere near where I need to live so I can work. You kind of go, well, what's the point? And I do find myself saying that, I have to remind myself, like, there is always a point. You can't just give up. But I understand, for the most part, like, I understand why that's the sentiment with young ones, because it does feel like that. It does feel like, well, why try? Like, I get it,
correct. Yeah, and I would say they need better guidance and so forth, but I do understand why people end up in that place and thinking that.
Yeah.
Andrew Taylor says 1.2 million homes in 5 years at the current numbers. There's 67,000 houses behind this year. 1,500 migrants a day, not including student visas that turn into PR. We are cooked. A couple of things in there. I agree on the housing issue. We restrict it too much. We are actually ahead, but this ties into an issue that someone else has brought up here. Daniel Zimmerman says, have you factored into the housing topic the family splitting and divorce that has caused the need for double housing? And also there's a place in Brizzy that makes flags here. So there are Australian-made flags in Brizzy. Thank you, Daniel Zimmerman, for clarifying that. But you're absolutely right. And so part of the housing supply shortage is the fact that the family home is actually more often than not a half-family home now. And we have more bedrooms than ever before and fewer people than ever before. And I've done videos on this. The number of bedrooms isn't the problem. But yes, now all of a sudden you've got divorces and now they're taking up 2 houses and that sort of thing. That's definitely happening. But also we're just not building anything for the new entrants to get onto the housing market. That's problem number one. Let's start there. Let's replace the bottom rungs on that ladder. I want to touch on this student visas thing, though, before we move on from this one. Student visas, people say, oh, and there's another 200,000 student visas or whatever it is. Yes, but that's been the case for quite some time. And they expire. Right now, some of them do turn into PR. Some of them do work on that, but that's actually a relatively small number. The vast majority don't. And so a student visa exists for a certain amount of time and then it expires, but it's replaced by new ones being issued to new students who arrive. So the 200,000 student visas, that's not 200,000 people that arrived this year. That's an additional 200,000 people that are in the country this year, but we've had them here for quite some time. No, not the same individual, but we've had large numbers of foreign students for quite some time. So that's not putting short-term pressure on housing, if that makes sense. These people have been structural. We've had this in our housing demand and housing market for quite some time. Also, by the way, speaking of starter housing, most of these people are living in places that you would not choose to live. Most of these people are living in the shitty one-bedroom student accommodation or one-bedroom apartments in high-rise in South Bank where neither you nor I want to live, like this, horrible little rat hole buildings that look nice on the outside, but they're ghettos on the inside. These people aren't taking the houses that you want to buy, and they're not even taking starter houses, starter homes, even not that they exist, they don't. But even if they did, they wouldn't be living in those. They'd be living in circumstances that you don't want and you wouldn't settle for. So,
I want to just bring up this comment because I was going to say something similar to this, and Raging Aussie makes a good point. No one has said it, but Boss Babe postmodern feminism has meant far less people in relationships sharing a single home. Both people have to be working, and society is incredibly nihilistic. 100%, dude. 100%. That's why I was saying, I'm going up against feminism. But my issue with that is I'm also not advocating for Handmaid's Tale trad wife, right? So this is a delicate one. But the more I've gone down this rabbit hole of looking at what fourth wave feminism has done to young women, and I made I had this point about a girl I know who I've watched get radicalized on social media. And it makes me incredibly sad because what we're seeing is these women are really buying into this rhetoric. And now, they're in their prime. This is their baby making years. This is when, you would be having a relationship. Yeah. Fast forward to when the seasons change, and it's going to take a good 10, 15 years, by the way, for all of this to go away. They'll be out, they'll be done. They'll be in their late 40s. They'll be in their 50s. Their time is gone. That's tragic, right? And unfortunately, and I see this not just in the universities, I see this on social media. You guys remember, I'm a woman. I see this conversation all day, every day. Men are evil. Men treat women like shit. And I will give you guys a caveat. And Toph and I have talked about feminism a lot, but I will say this, and I'm not saying this to start shit, but you just have to look at what people say about me in the comment thread on Toph's channel. Sexism is real, right? I'm not saying poor me. I don't give a fuck what people say about me. What I'm saying is men are still pretty sexist to people like me. The amount of people who say, shut up, woman, you don't get an opinion. That's me arguing for us not having that full pendulum swing. I want us to come back to where there's a robust conversation. I'm terrified that the pendulum goes the other way. And then women are, I'm being hyperbolic, but you guys see the sentiment. Postmodern feminism, terrible. But the opposite is also true. So we can't be saying women now just need to be out of the workforce and having kids. So this is the danger with these kind of arguments, right? So yes, it's important to talk about it, but you can't just say the opposite and then it's therefore fact.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say that women need to be out of the workforce and having kids because that leaves out the fact that they need to be cooking and barefoot. So we've got to make sure that we include everything.
There's sourdough to be made.
Now, there are just two more, and then we can get to the big story for tonight, only an hour and 38 minutes in. So very quickly, Daniel Moore says, I had to get 85% as a minimum for every class in my massage therapy training. Anything less than that was a fail. Yeah, standards actually being good. And I do use Daniel from time. Yeah, I use Daniel from time to time. He's very, very good and helps me with back when I was getting headaches and I'm getting them again. So I need to go and see him again. James Bennett's 1996. There were angry protests at Parliament House over the election of the Liberals. 96, that was the last election of Kennett, or was that the first election of Kennett? I can't remember. Anyway, that was Kennett in Victoria. Actually, I'm assuming that you're talking about Victoria. You don't actually say that. So that might have been a different election altogether. So anyway, the woke have been with us for quite a while. Yes, they have. They emerged out of the failed Communist Party and went across to the Greens and went across to social justice causes, without doubt. Okay. Oh, hang on. Okay. All right. We were nearly there, Carly. We were nearly there. But Joe, I want family to be family. Government has made this unachievable. Why are our ministers being those most unqualified people on those portfolios? Yeah. So I talk about this. Let me get the grift on. Let me get my grift on. I talk about this in my best-selling book, Good People Break Bad Laws.
Oh, shit.
Where I talk about the perverse incentives of politics and the gatekeepers, and the fact that once you understand the power brokers that operate within every single political party, and how that functions with the power brokers helping you to get pre-selection, and then you owe them favors, and then they negotiate amongst themselves in order to form the structure of the government and the party right now. And I'll scratch my back, your back if you scratch mine, and I did you a favor last time, so you owe me a favor this time. You understand that who gets which portfolio has nothing to do with competence, nothing whatsoever to do with competence, experience, nothing. It is all about internal party politics and the backroom deals. It's not even really up to the politicians. It's being done in back rooms by power brokers. And if you want to understand how that works, I literally spent, I think, 3 chapters breaking down the progression of how all of that works in my book. It really is perverse. And if you want to break somebody's faith in government and in politics, have them understand exactly this, that what Joe's talking about right now. Once they see it, they can't unsee it, and it will break your faith in politicians and politics to be able to fix anything.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we do it? Can we go?
We're there. Let's go. Ah, hang on. That's not a machete disposal bin.
I thought this was brilliant.
That's something useful.
I don't know much about this mob, but like a group called the New Radicals put this out the front of Jacinta's office in Bendigo, sorry. So for those who are listening, it says the shit premier safe disposal bin.
Okay, this is legendary. I know nothing about these people either. I'm not endorsing them, but this particular stunt, this is legendary. And if this is what they do, and if this is the caliber of what they do, then I look forward to what else they come up with. Dropping that square in front of Jacinta Allen's parliamentary office, gold. Absolute perfection.
There's so much to talk about this. We're probably going to have to keep talking about it on Wednesday, but I've got the front page of the Herald Sun, which I think is a good jumping off point. Let me just pull it up. So many screenshots. Oh, my God. I was prepared, and we've talked about nothing that I had prepared. Anyway, whatever.
No,
here we go.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So for those of you who aren't Victorian, but you're obviously aware because Topher and I talk about it all the time, what's going on in Victoria is pretty horrific, particularly around the crime and the protesting. All of a sudden, over the weekend, there has been a massive shift. There has been a huge change of temperature. The winds are blowing a different direction because not only is the Herald Sun speaking up about this, so is The Age. They are now gunning for Jacinta. And I believe that her own party, like all of the Labor MPs under Jacinta, are looking at her going, you've gone too far. This is wrong, because she's only doubling down. And I think she's going to get rolled.
Yeah, they're licking their lips. Now, the timing is everything. And I learned this. So I used to make predictions about people getting rolled, and then it wouldn't happen. And then eventually it would suddenly happen. I'd be like, oh, I was wrong for ages. And then suddenly when I gave up and thought, oh, you know, maybe I was wrong, all of a sudden it happened. You've got to understand the timing from the perspective of rolling somebody. The timing is everything. No one wants to roll Jacinta Allen right now. They might want to roll her before the next election, but that's too far away. They don't want to roll her now. So I don't think she's about to get rolled, but I think we're going to see the game of musical chairs really begin to kick off. And what you need to watch for are ministers and backbenchers in the Victorian Labor Party who are starting to get busy with media. They're starting to get out there more. And that's them beginning to try and cultivate a bit of support, a bit of momentum to get the winds to shift in their direction for a future leadership spill. But the front page of The Age was really telling. I've done a video actually covering the article that's in The Age. That'll be coming out tomorrow morning. And they're talking on the front page of The Age about the fact that private security guards in the western suburbs that have been working for about 3 years, paid for by homeowners in various housing estates to simply patrol and respond to phone calls from the residents of those estates. These are people that clearly have no faith in the police. You know, there's one police station out there for covering a vast sort of western wedge. They have no faith in the police's ability to show up, and so they've turned to private security. And okay, so that's a different one. So that's the Australian.
This is Australian.
They are now arming themselves with guns. And the Age said they will have guns before the end of the year. So in other words, their permits, etc., are expected to come through. I don't know exactly. The article didn't elaborate on that, but it is they're stating point blank. These people, there will be gun-armed patrols of non-police officers in the western suburbs of Melbourne before the end of this year. And this is on the back, and I cannot overstate. I cannot. It's impossible to overstate how significant this is.
Yeah.
The woman who works in the brothel, who used pepper spray, which is a prohibited weapon in Victoria, to protect herself 1 week ago, and it was all caught on camera. She's dead to rights. There's no question about what happened. Yeah. She has not yet been charged. I cannot overemphasize how significant that is.
They can't win there, can they? Because firstly, she's a sex worker. Secondly, she's a woman. So, you know, they can't win. Like, it's that it's that totem pole, right? Like who fits where? How do you there's no winning angle for the Labor Party there.
So the significance though is that Jacinta Allen knows that she cannot win that. She's read the tea leaves, they've done the focus groups, they've done whatever it is that they do, spend all our money on all that nonsense, and they've gone, we can't do this. We can't touch this. Now, so one possibility is that Jacinta Allen has told the Department of Public Prosecutions, you know what, guys, maybe just hold off for a little while on this one. The other possibility is that the police themselves have said, no, we're not doing this. Because it's obvious what will happen. She will become an instant martyr. It will fracture the Labor Party base, and the Labor Party support base will split down the middle. There will be those who are saying, you've got to do what the law says. You can't have people running around with pepper spray. And there'll be other people saying, but she was just protecting herself from a horrible, violent man. We've talked before about wedge issues that are designed to split and fracture someone's base, or to, wedge issues can be used to increase the distance between two parties or two candidates, or they can be used to exploit a fracture that exists in the support base of one side. Yeah. This would be Jacinta Allen wedging herself. If she prosecutes this brothel worker for using pepper spray in clear self-defense, I mean, there is no question about the circumstances, that would fracture her own base. She would be wedging herself. She can't do it. And the fact that she hasn't done it means that she knows it. Now, what that means is that she's no longer the one driving the narrative. She's no longer in control of this. She is having to read the tea leaves and do what the tea leaves tell her to do, not what she wants to do. This is hugely significant as a moment in time. And for the Age to also be coming out and basically promoting and celebrating the fact that there are going to be non-police private security armed with guns patrolling the streets, Jacinta Allen has lost control of the narrative completely at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like I said, the temperature has changed because this conversation is unavoidable. I don't think there's few people. I think there's few people left in this state who are untouched by this crime in some degree, whether it's themselves directly or people they know. We're seeing businesses being held up by teenagers. They're walking out with whatever they want. The small business community's never recovered since COVID. You've got people in their homes who've been attacked by these children in front of their own children. And the Premier keeps coming out and saying Melbourne's safe. And every time she says it, she's jinxing herself because the next day there's a carjacking, there's a stabbing, right?
Well, to be fair, there's a carjacking every day.
There's 9 a week. So, you get one, I get one, we all get a carjacking. But I want to play this. So this is her press conference today.
What we saw yesterday was a different pattern of behaviour to those examples. It was a very, very different set of people coming to the city with the view of engaging in violence quite clearly, which is why, as we saw from the police press conference.
Sorry, that's the wrong clip. She's talking about the protest. But yeah, she keeps doubling down and saying it's only a handful. There's most people in Melbourne are safe. Nothing's that wrong. But the issue is with Jacinta is that people are so fed up. It's her own base is turning on her because of this. They're like, you keep telling us it's safe. You keep telling us it's safe. It's not safe. You're not listening. You came out and you said you're going to give us the toughest bail laws in the country. Nothing's happened. If anything, it's only getting worse. You rolled out the machete bins, and yet we've had there's so many clips I could show you guys. I don't want to bore you. There's machete attack in Broadmeadows. There's a machete attack in South Bank. There's a stabbing at Crown. There's a carjacking. It's happening so much now. And there's two things going on here. I think that both sides of the news are also kicking this up because they've had
Yeah.
enough too. I had the Herald Sun reach out to me 2 days ago asking for a comment around my petition with David Limbrick. And
Yep.
I gave them a pretty frosty response. I was like, I'm not in the mood for a stitch up, but if you guys want to talk about youth crime, I'm happy to do it. But and to be fair, the reporter wrote back and said, look, we've had a gutful. We want more signatures on that petition.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the problem with Jacinta and the Labor Party now is that if they don't clean this up, that's their legacy. Everything else is irrelevant. Her little pet project, the suburban rail loop, done. The treaty, no one cares. What people care about, and fair, rightfully so, is that they're safe in their homes. And no one in Victoria feels like that right now. But what was most interesting about yesterday's protests is that the police, Vic Pol themselves, have come out basically condemning the left-wing protesters. Now, if you paid attention to the ABC and Channel 7, they particularly cut off that part of the comment. So
yes, they did.
They had the policeman. So do you want to play that clip or do you want to talk about it?
No, play it.
Hang on. I've got so many clips. I have to find the right one.
You made the comment a second ago about people watching the ABC. It's funny. There's a very dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine that I've known for many years, and I was a bit worried that he was starting to get dementia. He was kind of rambling and saying just things that were just batshit crazy and had no relationship to reality. And then I realized it wasn't dementia. He'd started watching the ABC again, and that was just. That was the
I
symptoms.
told you the story about G's mum. She's a boomer. Like all boomers, she goes to the ABC because that's the news. And she had it on the background and I could hear it.
ABC. Yeah.
Sorry? Yeah. And I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, this is blatant propaganda. And I had to say something to her. Again, I'm not trying to be political with my partner's mum, but I'm listening to stuff. I'm like, that didn't happen. That's actually factually inaccurate. They've deliberately excluded part of the conversation. But anyway, so I'm going to play this clip. Who is this guy? He's not the commissioner. Who is he? He's a top captain.
He was a sergeant, I believe. I can't quite see his lapel from here. He's I would assume he's an area commander, but I don't know that for a fact.
All right, I'm going to play what he said. I think this is the full thing. It's worth listening to the whole thing.
Can you expand that? Click expand on the video.
There you go.
This is what was thrown at police today, and I think Melbourne has had a gutful. I look on the social media streaming platforms of some of these issue-motivated groups that are saying police used excessive force. The fact was, these were being thrown at police. Bottles filled with shards of glass were being thrown at the police. Rotten fruit was being thrown at police. Bins were put on fire. Flags were on fire. And I think, really enough's enough. People came to pick a fight with the police. The people that came to pick the fight with police were the issue-motivated groups on the left. I can tell you that the March for Australia group, they were peaceful, they were engaging, they listened to our instructions, they did what they were told, and they protested by example.
So the ABC, Channel 9, Channel 7 deliberately cut that last section out where he was talking about it was the issue-motivated groups that were the ones rioting. And I've got dozens of different videos here of them, at their behaviour and what they were doing. And I think when I said at the opening of this show that the game's just getting started, this is what I mean. This doesn't go away tomorrow. This only escalates and people now go, I've had enough, and the left double down, which is exactly what they're doing. So they're organising another protest, they'll regroup. And what I find so interesting is the way they're speaking up about the police brutality, right? Because that's straight out of the BLM playbook. The police overplayed their hand. The police were deliberately attacking peaceful protests. They weren't peaceful. We know they weren't peaceful. He just said himself what they were doing. You got your purple pingers types saying that they were completely unprovoked. They were using disproportionate force. And I just want to remind people, when we talk about disproportionate force, I'm going to play this really quickly, not to trigger every Melburnian, but because it seems like people have very short memories. This is Melbourne 2021. The police firing rubber bullets into protesters who are walking away and deliberately firing their weapons onto unarmed civilians as they walk up to the shrine. This was 2021, and none of these lefties said a damn thing when people were walking away from this with giant welts. I mean, obviously, we know Matt Lawson. I've got a friend who's currently suing the government over this because her wound has still yet to heal. Look at it. Like, the protesters were running away from the cops. They weren't trying to pick a fight. And the cops walked, like the riot police went in there to deliberately make it, to send a message. And Daniel Andrews enabled this.
For those that aren't familiar with this footage, you can hear the sound of the police continuing to fire their rubber bullets at the backs of people who are running away. Hard to hear. You could just hear what it's there. Yeah. They are continuing to fire at people who are running away. Right? So that's the standard that was set by Daniel Andrews and the Labor government and Victoria Police at that point in time. Now, that is not a justification for them to then do it to the other side. I'm not saying, oh, because they did it to my side, they should do it to the others. No, not at all. But also, someone made a comment. I can't find it now. Well, this one's true. This copper will, certainly he's never getting promoted. That's for sure. His career is peaked. He'll never get any higher. But someone made the comment, oh no, rocks sort of being, rocks are illegal now. Well, throwing rocks at people has been illegal for a very long time. Like assaulting people. Yes, you can assault somebody with a rock. People get killed by fists. People get killed by rocks. This is not something that we should be rewarding or condoning. I condemned any violence that happened amongst the anti-lockdown protests. I was a part of those protests. I was encouraging people to come to those protests, and I actively worked against anyone. I saw people throwing traffic cones at a police horse at one point. Gave them an absolute rogering, and they scurried off. And the police just kept on. They kept on going. I think they knew that these guys were getting dealt with. It was all on a live stream. It was all caught on live stream. We cannot have and we cannot accept in our political discourse throwing rocks, throwing bottles, these sorts of things. And there is a world of difference between, for example, when we got trapped in the cutting out in Richmond, and people began to throw their plastic bottles with water that they had with them because we were getting pepper sprayed. We'd been hemmed in on all sides. They were up on the walking tracks up above us, and they were spraying pepper spray down, and people started throwing their plastic water bottles back. Now, I even disagree with that. I wish they hadn't thrown even those projectiles, right? But there's a world of difference between people in that moment hemmed in, being directly assaulted by police, completely unnecessarily, throwing the plastic water bottle they already had in their hand, right? That's one thing. People who bring projectiles to the protest for the purpose of finding the opportunity to throw those at police and making them things like glass bottles and decent sized rocks, etc. That's an entirely different thing. And so whilst I condemn both, I condemn violence no matter who brings it. One of these things is not like the other. And it's very, very pleasing to see the police call it out.
I've got a clip if it will let me play it. This is some of the left wing protesting. So I'll just bring it up. Hang on. Add to stage. There we go. So.
Oh shit! Hey! Chill out! Wait! Wait! Man! Woohoo! I'm young to shit, mate. Shit! Get the fuck off him! Let's go, let's go. You are pushing old man! You go my way! Step back. I'm going to stop you.
So you get the point. They were trying to find trouble. These people weren't there to protest. They were there to pick fights.
No. Yeah. And look, honestly, there is a big part of me that says if that's what they want, then they should be given more than their fill. There is a place for rough justice in my view. And once people are picking fights, I think, give them what they've come for.
I want to
But
show you this as well. Sorry. This is like
yeah,
some of the aftermath. The same sentiment we keep seeing: death to Australia,
yeah,
abolish
yeah,
Australia. And this is
yeah,
why, we were talking before about, reclaiming your pride in being Australian. It's got nothing to do
yeah,
with being white. It's about being Australian.
yeah,
Have an
and
Australia Day party. Have the flag up in your house.
yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
need to show people this doesn't threaten us. This is not intimidating to us. These people are a
yeah.
minority.
So can I bring two things together? Firstly, I don't know who wrote these, but we know that there are people who are white Europeans, multi-generational, white Aussies who have been taught to hate themselves. They've accepted this
Yeah.
idea that they are the problem. They do say things like death to Australia. They march with the Palestine mob across the bridge and stand under the picture of the Ayatollah proudly. Some of these people are in our parliaments, by the way. That's not a race issue. That's not a color of their skin or where they were born issue. They hate Australia, and they're white Europeans. They're the people that some people say are the solution, right? But they are clearly part of the problem. Secondly, I want you to have a think of the No Kings rallies in the US. They're claiming 7 million people showed up to the last one. Official figures put it about 650,000. It's certainly no more than 2 million. I've had a good look at the photos. I've got a video coming out about that. I think I'm being exceptionally generous to cap it at 2 million. I think it's well under 1 million. But when you look at the photos of who was there, forget the numbers, who was there, look at the videos of people going past or people marching, etc. It's retirement age white people. These are the people that hate Trump. These are the people that are showing up. And really white-anting their own country. This isn't a race issue. The divide is actually not along racial lines. The divide is along ideological lines. And just because somebody is brown doesn't mean that they don't love Australia and love what we stand for and want to be a part of it. And just because somebody is white doesn't mean that they do. And unfortunately, we see that in these sorts of Antifa events.
When I was looking at the footage from the No Kings protest, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday, I was looking at it, I'm like, these are people who have no real investment in things. They just watch CNN all day. I genuinely don't, I try to see the best of people, but these are people who have been indoctrinated. This is just absolute brainwashing. And Jimmy Kimmel got taken off air for 1 week, right? And then as soon as he was back on air, he's emboldened now. He was calling Trump supporters terrorists the other day. So that's what they're consuming all day, every day. Trump's Hitler, Trump's fascist, Trump's this, Trump's that. And it gets to a point where people are just like, well, it's programming. You watch these people, they are zealots. And what's fascinating about this is once there's a set narrative, right? Like whatever the current line of reasoning is, they'll say, oh, no, but Trump's a fascist because of this, and we don't want kings here. I find it so fascinating because if you pick them off one by one and then try and have a conversation, they've got nothing. They've only got those collective statements. That's all they know.
But that's so true of so many things, climate change and all the rest of it. We've talked about this before, where when people try and take me to task, they usually start looking for the exits within about 3 minutes because they start to realize that all they've got is the slogans, and I'm able to go deep on any one of these topics that I've covered over the decades. But on the No Kings thing, two things. Firstly, they were clearly hugely. What was that? Did you just?
I have no idea.
Was that my voice? Did I just hear are you fangirling over me while I'm talking to you? You could just look at me. You don't have to look at videos of me, right? I'm right here. Carly. Eyes up here.
As you were.
Eyes up here. They were hugely successful, these No Kings rallies, because I checked, America does not have a king. So well done to all the protesters. They've obviously achieved their objective. But what I loved was that No Kings protests spilled over into Canada and into the UK.
Where they actually have a king?
Where they most definitely have a king. So their No Kings protests were distinctly less effective than the ones in America.
Can I play something? Because I know we're going to wrap up in a second, but we cannot do this live stream without playing this next clip.
Okay.
Let me pull it up. And hang on.
So make it big for anyone that hasn't seen.
So just imagine danger zone. I don't want to get into. This is exactly what we need from our politicians. This trolling is elite. I love that it's Harry Sisson, right? Because he's up in arms about this. He feels personally attacked. But this kind of trolling is just making fun of them. That's what we need. Make fun of these people.
Okay. I agree, but not from a president.
I
I do
I
draw a
think it's
line.
fantastic.
I look from a right-wing commentator, from the Daily Wire, from anyone of a bunch of different outlets, hilarious. From the president of the United States himself, no, probably not. That's certainly, if I ruled the world, I would not be putting out videos like that. That is a step too far for me.
All right, so I'm going to push back on
This
you
is pretty
with this
funny.
because
This is pretty funny.
I think trolling is important here because there's very little things that will diffuse it, right? Like no amount of let's just be nice, let's have a conversation. Like this has been happening since the Obama years. They have been indoctrinating their side to look at us like we're genuinely Nazis. You know, that Overton window has shifted so far
Yeah,
that it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how well we speak, how well formed our arguments are. What this does is this diffuses the conversation with humor. Like some of these are so funny and you watch them get so like flustered over it. They're truly incensed. But let's look back like during the Biden years and watch what they were all doing on the late night shows and how they were mocking
Yeah.
Trump because he's Orange Man
That's
bad.
true.
How is
That's
this
true.
any different? Now, I understand because you're like, oh, well, a president should be a bit more of a statesman or whatever. I disagree. This is what makes Trump relatable. Yes, he's a billionaire. Yes, he's the president of the free world, but he's friggin' funny. And like everyone in his team, JD Vance, his son, Donald Trump Jr., they're funny. And so even if you find that like maybe in a bit of bad taste, part of you's like, you know, it's like a fart in a funeral. You're sort of going, that's what we need.
Sure. And look, the only one that I really object to so far is that one with the plane dumping a load of shit on people's heads. That's just a bit. And I think also part of it is just the amount of effort that someone has had to put into that. And I know it's not a lot in these days of AI, but you know as well
Stop.
that
Can
there
I
can
just
be a
tell
lot of
you
effort that has to go into AI to get it to do what you want it to do.
that everyone who keeps thinking AI is a one button click to get that, can I tell you,
no.
as someone who's been
No.
studying this for 18 months, it's actually really hard. And you got to have a lot of patience with AI.
Yeah. All right. We've got to get back to a couple more comments here. So we've got Catherine Cavaney. It seems to me that the left always go out of their way to harm while conservatives do everything not to harm property or people. Remember Victor Pol and BLM. Well, yeah, Victoria Police literally bending the knee. What was it? The Chief Commissioner Wiggum,
Yes.
Luke Cornelius, I think his name was, bending the knee. Oh,
well,
that's charming.
This is the left's version, right? So Donald Trump, okay, I'm not endorsing Trump just because of his trolling. I just find it friggin' funny. But this is the left. This is what the left does. Like, what's it say?
Build a bright future for trans kids. Throw a brick at a cop today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
that's wonderful. I'm glad we have that on our streets.
Yeah, that's such a the Moss guy. Now I just want to troll Tova. Go for it, please do. So Catherine, you're dead right. But the reality is it is much more difficult to build than it is to tear down. If you just want to tear things down, you can see results in a really short amount of time. And that's really gratifying, instant gratification. If you want to build and keep things and make them better, that's hard. And it takes time and effort. And the results aren't always up. You know, the results don't always match the effort that you've had to put into doing that. And so, yes, there is a childishness that comes with socialism. So socialism, by the way, is how a good family works. You know, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. That's how a family works. Children are meant to be social dependents upon their parents, but then they grow out of that. Socialism is essentially an effort to extend childhood. It's people who want to remain dependents. They want to continuously be living off someone else's effort the way that a child gets to do. And so it's I'm not just pulling straws out of thin. I'm not just making it up. When they want to tear down, they want to live in dependence on others. It is a childishness. They're refusing to grow up, quite literally.
That's why I think the trolling's so good, because that's what it is. It is childish. It's speaking their language. And the left infantilize everything. Everything that comes with it. Oh, but what about this? What about the poor people? What about this? Like, everything is about speaking about some unknown other that's a victim that they need to speak on behalf of. Like, whether you want to call that the white knight thing or whatever it is, but that bleeding heart, like, I will help you, I will save you. That's how the left operates. And it's exhausting because they're always going to argue over it. And like, I wanted to pick a fight with you, but We'll save it for Wednesday, but I want to talk about
Okay.
how I really upset people over Halloween decorations. Do you want to have this now?
Oh,
Yeah.
no. We need to wind up. We've got a couple more comments here. But Red Pilled Fabs, I think you're spot on here. I don't have a counter to this point of yours, which is the trolling shows us that Trump understands the internet. It's very effective messaging. Trump reached all of Harry's viewers. It was a masterclass. I cannot
Agree.
disagree. There's nothing I can say in reply to that. That is absolutely correct. I don't like it. I wouldn't choose to do it if I was in his position. But what you've said is absolutely correct. Yes. Yeah, 100%. All right. We need to have a quick chat about this before we wind up. When is picking up a weapon justified? I would say when the option to pick it up will close. So if someone says, all I want to do is tie you up, why are you reaching for a weapon? I don't have a weapon. I just want to tie you up and make you completely powerless. Well, you would be justified in reaching for a weapon at that point, because if you don't and you get tied up, your ability to reach for a weapon is gone.
Yeah.
So at the point when you're directly threatened, yes, absolutely. But I would say actually before that, at the point at which if you don't pick it up now, you won't have the option to pick it up. You won't be fast enough. You won't be able to respond fast enough, or you'll be incapacitated or unable for any reason. The moment the option to pick up a weapon is going to be closed on you, that in my view is the time when that's your last opportunity. You are justified in picking up a weapon at that point in time, in my view.
I feel like I have a different take on this because particularly with today's climate, I feel like this all relates back to that whole warrior in a garden thing. I would love the idea of being able to conceal carry, right? And not just a firearm, but like, a switchblade or something, or pepper spray even.
Yep.
She could
a
have
gecko,
something.
a couple of roses. Yep. Concealed carry, anything.
Right? Like,
yep.
She could have something. So maybe I won't try rape this one. Do you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know if she does, but she could have, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we have a right to be able to defend ourselves, and we shouldn't have to wait till we've been harmed to then want to pick up the weapon. It should be a deterrent. So I might be alone in that sentiment, but I feel that way.
Yeah. No, look, I think you're entitled to pick up a weapon anytime you, in your own exclusive discretion, believe that it might be warranted. But I would say you should not wait any longer than when the option to pick up a weapon closes. There are people that say, oh, no, you can't do anything till after they've attacked you. No. By then, it's often too late. You're already at too much of a disadvantage. You need to be able to respond legally and be protected for responding much sooner than that. All right, you got to.
CJ, we need an intervention. Everyone, let's rally around CJ.
A stomach pump is in order. For those that are listening, I don't know about you guys, but I'm drunk enough to date an Abby Chatfield. Wow.
CJ, collectively, we all care about you.
Okay.
Your health is really important to us, but I really do think it's time to put down the bottle, okay? Okay, sweetheart. Like, I'm going to need you to pick up a glass of water. We're here for you. Okay? We're here.
Carly, that level of patronizing is making my stomach churn.
I was very sincere.
Please tell me that you've seen the movie Mystery Men.
Fresh memory.
One of the great comedies. No, I won't ruin it. It's one of the great comedies. It's a superhero parody comedy. It's brilliant. It is absolute masterful filmmaking. There is a moment in there where there's a female lead, one of the superheroes, and they're at a bar, and one of these sort of aged out, down on his luck male lead superheroes is trying to make a move on her, and she just looks at him ice cold and just says, there is not enough alcohol in the world. And it's just one of these beautiful moments. Anyway, let's get back to the remaining super chats, and then we can all go to bed. Okay, so mainstream slaps. Round 2. The average amount of people that don't care about our culture is growing faster than those that do. So don't we need to slow the mass migration to help the change that you're looking for, Topher? I disagree with the premise. Again, I think that we are in an age of awakening. We are in certainly a massive social shift. That I think is beyond question now. We've talked at length about that previously. I won't re-prosecute that. But I think there is an awakening happening. And I think that COVID definitely accelerated it. It was already happening, but COVID accelerated it. I think more people are beginning to care than ever before. I have a lot of faith in the invisible hand, a lot of faith in ordinary people making ordinary decisions and recognizing problems, yes, perhaps later than I would like. Maybe I'm just one of those people that just pays a bit more attention to the world, or I don't know, mate, I'm weird, whatever it is. I see things a little bit earlier than other people do. But I've learned to have a lot of faith in other people picking up the problems at some point. And COVID, honestly, COVID really reinforced that for me, that faith, believe it or not. Even though, yes, Daniel Andrews was re-elected, there's lots of reasons to look at it and go, oh, it's all despair and doom and gloom. No, actually, what I saw was the best of people. And there weren't many of us. There weren't enough of us. But I saw that still is here. And so I disagree with the premise.
I am going to throw some culture in here because as much as a lot of people dislike talking about the culture, and I understand, from a superficial point of view, it can seem like really annoying and tedious. But that's like Topher says this every episode, politics is downstream from culture. You need to look at what's happening where people are spending their time in their day to day, because everyone on this live chat is politically engaged, which is great. But, there's a whole huge amount of people over there who aren't. And you've got to look at what they're doing and where they're spending their money and what they're doing with their time. There is a massive, massive movement now away from digital tech. Not to say people are removing themselves from social. There's some people doing that. But right now, the massive shift in people moving themselves back to analog technology. Why am I bringing this up? It's not just a digital fatigue. It's not a social media thing. It's a CPU thing, right? To use that analogy. People are realizing that they are spending their lives overstimulated, oversaturated with information that they cannot digest. People are exhausted. Now, why is that? One, the infinite scroll. So the news cycle has an infinite scroll on your phone, and the 24-hour news cycle. That has been operating for the better part of 15 years. And now it's gotten to a point where it doesn't matter how much information you're reading, you can't absorb it. And so this massive shift to analog means people are going to start reading books again, dare I say. They're going to start writing again. They're going to start moving away from where all of this hyperbole is, because it's exhausting. And it's not because they no longer care politically. It's more so from I can't do this. I'm tired. I'm unhappy. I'm miserable. And so the reason I point out the culture here is because then that means the mainstream media, like, all the people who need to parrot all the doom and gloom to get all the clicks for the ad revenue, they lose their power because they're losing eyeballs. Attention is the most valuable commodity today, right? So when you see this, you're seeing this more from I'm only looking at the left who are radicalized, and I'm only looking at the right who are also starting to gear up. You're not taking into account all the other people who aren't in echo chambers. And these are the people that are leading the charge. So that's where you look for optimism.
I'm just thinking, is this a new T-shirt idea? This comment?
You are an idiot, Topher. Grow the fuck up, dude. Could be.
Just thinking that could be
something I haven't said to you personally.
Yeah, no, I know, right? This is how every conversation ends after we end the stream. I'm just thinking like a 1-star review, like 1 star. You are an idiot, Topher. Grow the fuck up, dude. I think could be great. Could be great.
A 1-star Google review T-shirt for you would be fantastic. That's exceptional.
It'd be so good. I'll tell you what, there's some good ones out there. Have I ever told you the funniest one? I'd have to go back and find it. But I mean, kudos to this person. They were trolling, but they actually put effort in. There was some craft, and they made a joke about how I looked like I was going to chew through the walls of Parliament House because of my teeth. Yes, exactly. Okay. That reaction. I'm like, I respect that troll. That is good work. That is quality work, right? Please stick around, do more. Okay, but this is a good idea. Virginia Charlotte says maybe Carl's needs to design the Oddies special drinking mug in the shape of an old school pewter tankard.
What's that? What's a pewter tankard?
So like the ones that have, like they're usually large. They have a big blocky handle, like a square shaped handle on them. And they've usually got like a square design around them where it's kind of lumpy. I don't know how to describe it, but they're massive and they're solid and they're heavy and they're good for drinking beer.
I actually have a cool novelty mug idea in the works, and I think you guys will appreciate it. But it's only for the OG Oddies. I apologize.
Mm-hmm. Well, insult Topher and you get a royalty on each shirt. No, you don't. I'm a grifter, remember? I'm keeping all that money.
I will say this. All these good super chats have been on your channel, god damn it.
Have they? Yes, I win. I don't know how you can tell. I don't know how you tell who's on what, but anyway, apparently you can. All All right, we need to wind up because we're heading towards 10 o'clock and I turn into a pumpkin at 10 o'clock.
I need to eat dinner. I'm hungry. So
Well, I have pity for dinner, RIP.
on Wednesday, guys, if
Yeah.
you're on coffee, if you haven't bought us coffee, you should buy us coffee and sign up. But send us some ideas for what to talk about on Wednesday, because I feel like we'll dominate it with the whole Melbourne stuff. And I get a bit bored talking about Melbourne because it's not going to change anytime soon. And there's so many things that I can't keep up. So do you want more American politics? Because obviously Albo's with Trump tonight. And I was hoping we could live react, but I don't think it's happened yet.
Okay, well, obviously we need to cover the baggage retrieval system at Heathrow Airport because I'm quite worried about that.
Baggage retrieval system. What's that all about? What?
Well, the baggage retrieval system at Heathrow Airport. I'm so worried about that. People in the comments will know and they will make you feel dumb. Oddies, have at it in the comments at Carly.
Huh? Have I missed something?
Yes, you have. You clearly have not read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's what you've missed.
Nope. No idea what you're talking about.
I've read them all, the trilogy in 4 parts.
I didn't even know there was a trilogy. So there you go.
And in fact,
right.
I'm actually right. I've just made an idiot of myself because I misremember. It's not that. It is actually Monty Python. Yes. Thank you for setting me right. Wow, that's embarrassing. I just turned an own on Carly into a self-own completely. Wow.
Do you know what's funny is when you insult me, half the time I have no idea what you're talking about. So I just sit here and I'm just like, huh? Like, anyway,
Yeah,
on that note,
let's get out of here.
Thank you guys for joining us again. And yeah, Wednesday's show will be interesting. So if you are new here, we do Wednesday night podcast at 7 p.m. and get in the live chat over at the Oddcast HQ. And then Monday night is a live stream where it just goes off the rails usually, kind of like tonight. And yeah.
Yeah, we come in with the best of intentions. It's like politicians. We come in with the best of intentions, and then the minute the actual the show starts, all the plans go out the window.
It turns into debauchery, just chaos.
It degenerates very quickly. On that happy note,
I was going to say, it's so hard to maintain a conversation with you and read the comments. And in the comments, there's about 74 different conversations, and I'm like, huh,
yeah, that's why I don't listen to a word you say. It just makes it so much easier. Yeah.
Evidently, that is true. All right, guys.
Bye, everybody.